owner of the US Mega Farm. Este video es puramente para entretenimiento y no infringe derechos de autor en los derechos de la novela y la imagen son del autor original, no reclamamos propiedad. No te gusta esperar y quieres escuchar este fanfic completo ahora? Suscríbete a nuestro Patreon, donde encontrarás los mejores fanfics. Chapter 951. The poor man surrounded by snakes. Fuck, where's that spotted python just now? I'm going to kill it. After being awakened from his sleep for the nth time, Kinzu was so angry that he wanted to pinch the spotted python that just reported the news and feed it to the pheasants. It's okay to report the news when you see the pheasants, after all, they are also two-legged animals, there's nothing wrong with that. But there are a group of reindeer in front of you, why the hell are you yelling? 2 feet, which one of them has 2 feet? But facing Kinzu, oh no, it's Cheesefuck's angry eyes, this more than 2 meter long spotted python seemed particularly aggrieved. It's obviously 2 horns. Kinzu knew nothing about this, otherwise he would definitely send this ignorant little python to the west with his tail. At this moment, he was having a headache because of the current matter. Apart from other things, just the warning sound that sounded from time to time made him a little headache. Go ahead, you always report false military intelligence. I can't go, but I'm afraid someone will come in. Damn, it's a mistake to ask you guys to come. Kinzu shook his head helplessly, controlled Cheese to turn back into a python, and then raised his head and hissed a few more times. This time, he didn't call the group of snakes over, but asked these guys to keep quiet. Moreover, as long as the alien species enters the ranch, attack me immediately. Kinzu didn't believe it. Would those guys come without guns? In addition, they were attacked rashly. When they didn't know the situation, would they not shoot? So, as long as they fired and exposed their whereabouts, they would wait for the army to kill them. As for these snakes, how many will be left after tonight? Kinzu said he didn't feel sorry at all. There is no way, who let these guys are all poisonous snakes, and they are the kind of poisonous snakes with low intelligence. Although they will instinctively submit to the strong, when you show weakness, they will turn around and bite you again. After doing all this, Kinzu retracted his thoughts, yawned, and stretched his waist. This night, he was tormented. Although his body was not injured, his spirit was almost exhausted in the switching of thoughts. How to describe this feeling? It was like the feeling of being empty after a day and night of fighting with the beautiful Zhu. Husband, what are you doing? Why don't you go to bed? Kinzu's stretching action woke up Zhu Mengyo beside him. The confused beauty half propped up her body and asked lazily. Oh, it's okay, wife, go to bed. Kinzu came back to his senses, smiled and agreed, and then took her delicate body in his arms, and the two of them pressed tightly together. Well, go to bed early, there are things to do tomorrow. After a cute little yawn, Zhu Mengyo found a comfortable position in Kinzu's arms and fell asleep sweetly. Looking at the sweet smile on the corner of Zhu's mouth, Kinzu suddenly felt that he was the happiest person in the world, and wanted to continue like this. But the reality cruelly told him that he had to go to bed. Kinzu narrowed his eyes, sighed, and reached out to cover the two of them with the quilt, preparing to take a nap to replenish his energy. However, there are always a group of people in the world who specialize in ruining other people's good deeds. At midnight, outside the Tycoon ranch. Quick, Team 1 and Team 2 go over there, Team 3 and Team 4 go over here, hurry up. Several heavy trucks quietly stopped less than 1 kilometer away from the ranch in the night. The more than 50 fully armed strongmen who got off the trucks quickly lined up in several rows under the command of several leaders and rushed towards their respective destinations. It seemed that all this had been rehearsed countless times, and the whole action was so smooth. Hey, boss. After several teams quickly approached the ranch, a blonde and blue-eyed man sitting in the co-pilot jumped out of the car. Just a yellow monkey? Is it necessary for us to bring so many brothers out? TSK, just a yellow monkey? The man called the boss was a white man with muscular body and a beard on his face. However, at this moment, his face was a little solemn, and he sneered at the words of his men. What do you know? Just this yellow monkey solved the mad dog and knocked down Stella. As he spoke, a bad premonition surged in the heart of the white man. Is it really so easy to complete his mission this time? TSK, what's a mad dog? I can solve him with one hand. The white young man who spoke at the beginning curled his lips and looked very disapproving. Since the establishment of their grisly mercenary group, when has it ever taken on such a small task? I don't know what the boss thinks. It's just assassinating a rancher. How much money can it make? Besides, assassinating a rancher requires so many people. Can we get back the cost? But he dared to think about these words in his heart. Grizzly's reputation was not earned by shouting, but by killing people. Bang. 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 The 3 consecutive faint gunshots not only made Grizzly's heart jump while he was waiting for news, but also cheered up the several female bodyguards who were on guard at the villa. Fuck. What's wrong with you? Didn't you say not to shoot? Picking up their car walkie-talkie next to him, Grizzly's huge roar came over. Boss, it's too dangerous here. A team leader in charge shouted in a terrified voice. Retreat quickly, there are snakes everywhere, so many snakes. Snakes? Grizzly, who was holding the walkie-talkie and was about to curse, was a little surprised when he heard it. What a joke. A few snakes make you so scared. As if he understood what Grizz was thinking, before he could say anything, the team leader on the other side cried out in a sobbing voice. Boss, there are so many snakes here, everywhere. We need anti-snake venom serum, a lot of it. What? Although he heard it clearly, Grizz still couldn't believe his ears. What's going on? Do you think we are still in the Amazon jungle? Really, boss, these guys came out too suddenly, and many brothers have been beaten. The team leader on the other end of the walkie-talkie was about to cry. Especially when he looked at the group of things in front of him that were constantly twisting and turning through the night vision goggles, he felt his body trembling. He was scared. Even though he was a veteran, he was really scared when he suddenly faced so many snakes. Fuck. Save me, come and save me. Damn, you damn reptiles, stay away from me. Bang. 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 Chapter 952. Pursuit. Retreat, everyone retreat. Listening to the screams and the crisp gunshots coming from the other end of the intercom, Grizz felt that his heart was bleeding. These are all elites. No matter which one of them, they can fight 10 people alone after going out. This time they actually landed in this small forest. Boom, not long after Grizz gave the order to retreat, a black helicopter slowly rose from the top of the villa and quickly approached the destination. Not only that, under the helicopter, 2 heavy machine guns with a caliber of 12.7 mm were also protruded. Or it would be more appropriate to call it an aviation cannon. Dale, remember, you can't get too close. This time we will focus on intimidation. Thinking back to the boss's instructions before leaving, Dale couldn't help but smile. She didn't know what was going on, and thought Kianzu was concerned about her safety, but what was the truth? In fact, it was because Kianzu had learned the general situation from Cheese. The moment he was awakened by the gunshot, Kianzu forced himself to stay exhausted and turned his thoughts to Cheese. It was because of this that he knew clearly that this guy would never dare to come again. Well, at least not today. It must be said that these guys were really unlucky. Although Kianzu had summoned many snakes, they were scattered throughout the ranch and could not be seen. But these guys had to come from the grove. Like humans, snakes also like to stay in the grove. So, the two soon collided with each other. These snakes had been tossed around all night and were already full of anger. Now they saw the legendary 2-legged creatures and received the order to attack. How could they be polite? Whether they were poisonous or not, they bit the intruders with their big mouths at the moment they met. And these guys? Although they were wearing night vision goggles, they didn't have the habit of looking at the ground carefully. Besides, they had just entered the target territory. Oh, no, it should be said that they haven't entered the target's territory yet. Who would have thought that they would be attacked suddenly? So, under the collision of one intentional and one unintentional, the result came quickly. Fuck. Quick, bring all the anti-snake venom serum and inject them first. When his men came back, Grizz was almost furious, especially when he saw his subordinates with purple faces. He felt so cold in his heart. He hadn't even touched a hair of the other party. Would his subordinates die just like that? Boss, the anti-snake venom serum is gone. A somewhat panicked voice interrupted Grizz's meditation, and his expression quickly changed from livid to pale. Why is it gone now? Damn it, what should we do with them? Turning around, Grizz roared at the white man in front of him with some anger. But boss, we only have so much, and this thing is not often used. The white man was about to cry. He was the team doctor of the Grizz mercenary group. He was responsible for the injuries or illnesses of the team members. Because of this, he could hide behind like the boss and didn't have to go forward. Grizz opened his mouth and wanted to curse, but he couldn't say anything. Indeed, anti-snake venom serum is usually used less, and it is not cheap. How can you bring too much when you go out? But now the nearest large hospital is also on the other side of Revere. Is it too late? Before he could sort out the time, the teams behind him also withdrew one after another. Except for a few lucky ones, no one was not hit. Not only that, as the few people retreated, there was also a helicopter approaching in the air. Helicopter. Looking up in astonishment, Grizz recognized it at a glance. It was a Black Hawk. Moreover, looking at the two large-caliber heavy machine guns protruding from the belly of the aircraft, Grizz didn't think it was a joke. Fuck. Get in the car quickly, let's retreat. Not caring about the wounded or not, Grizzly began to command the team members who needed help to move to get in the car one after another. After a panic, when the helicopter was about to approach, several heavy trucks didn't care about hiding their bodies, and stepped on the accelerator and ran at full power. Oh, the boss really guessed it. Looking at the series of convoys on the ground with some curiosity, Dale was a little confused, wondering if these guys were really scared away by him. But after guessing for a long time and still not being sure, Dale's temper also came up, especially thinking of the boss's instructions. He was even more fearless. So, with a trembling hand, the white and tender fingers gently pressed down. Da-da-da, along with two tongues of fire, a series of metal collisions followed, and the sound of bullets hitting the trucks made the group of wounded sitting in the car a little frightened. Well, man, our car should be bulletproof, right? A young white guy who looked a little immature turned around and looked at his companions with some uncertainty. Bulletproof? That depends on what kind of bulletproof it is. A middle-aged white man who was interrupted by his companions in his contemplation said helplessly, "Man, the only thing you can do now is to pray to God that the machine gunner is a short and fast guy." Otherwise, although the middle-aged white man didn't say anything, his companions obviously understood it. They lowered their heads and leaned listlessly on the roof made of iron sheets. Rumble, da-da-da, another burst of machine gun fire came, and the group of mercenaries hiding in the heavy truck didn't even dare to raise their heads. Although there were a few hot-tempered ones who wanted to take out the rocket launcher and shoot it, they were stopped by their companions. According to them, if we can avoid heavy weapons, we won't use them. Unless you can be sure that you can kill him in one shot, and he will not be resurrected. Otherwise, if you fail to kill him, he will come back with more than just heavy machine guns. Because in their eyes, a guy who can drive a military helicopter home and modify it privately cannot be without heavy weapons at home. After all, if they have even heavy machine guns, how far will they be from missiles? But they would never have thought that the increasingly mysterious rancher in their eyes was sleeping soundly with his wife in his arms. As for what happened outside, that's easy, isn't there someone dealing with it? Si est escuchando esta novela en un canal distinto a mundo fanfic novelas, significat lo descarga and y subir en sinisfuerzos invitamos cordialmente a visitar nuestro canal. Mundo fanfic novelas all encontras la versión original de esta historia y podrás explorar muchas otras novelas de diversos narradores. Te esperamos para sumergirte en un mundo de novelas incredibles. Chapter 953, Fighting for Food with a Dog. In the early morning, Kinzu was awakened by the chirping of birds outside the window. Sitting up with his back against the headboard and rubbing his aching head, Kinzu felt that he seemed to have forgotten something. What on earth is it? After squinting his eyes and thinking carefully for a while, he finally realized that there seemed to be thieves in the manor yesterday. Well, in his eyes, those fierce mercenaries are actually the same as thieves. Looking at the time next to him, it was already past 10 in the morning, and there was no one around. It seemed that Zumengyo had gotten up a long time ago. Shaking his head, Kinzu quickly turned over and got out of bed, went to the bathroom to wash up simply, changed into a clean set of clothes, and then went downstairs. "Hi, Dale, good morning." As soon as he walked down the stairs, Kinzu saw Dale and Erica sitting on the sofa in the living room drinking coffee. He waved and greeted them, and asked, "How was the situation yesterday? Boss, you finally got up." Dale rolled her eyes at Kinzu unhappily, stretched her body, and explained with a smile, "Those guys all retreated yesterday. There was nothing I could do. The heavy truck's defense was too high, and you didn't let me chase too far. It's okay. Waving his hand, Kinzu ignored Dale's cute little eye roll, came to the soft sofa and sat down, and said with a smile, "How is it? Have you figured out the situation? Which guy is looking for trouble with us?" "This, I'm afraid you can't guess." Raising a document in her hand, Dale yawned a little, and said with a smile, "Boss, take your time to read it. If you don't understand anything, ask Erica." This is what she collected. "I'm going to bed first. Sleep. You didn't stay up all night, did you? Kinzu took the document and looked up at Dale in surprise. Is this girl going to fight so hard? What do you think? Dale pouted and walked upstairs while muttering, only a big boss like you can sleep so peacefully, right? Touching his nose, Kinzu didn't know how to refute for a while, and finally waved his hand helplessly. Okay, go to rest quickly. You're so old, and you don't even know how to sleep. Dale almost couldn't help but fight with him after hearing what Kinzu said. Isn't it to protect you that I don't sleep? Fortunately, Kinru ran in from outside with brisk steps at this time, which made this somewhat cold female bodyguard stop wanting to deal with her boss. Brother, you got up, have you had breakfast? Kinru, who ran into the villa quickly, just put down the things in her hand, and looked up to see Kinzu sitting on the sofa, and couldn't help but run over happily. Not yet, have you all eaten yet? Kinzu smiled and stroked the braids tied behind the little girl's head, and asked, what are you holding? Brother, look, this is food prepared for Da and the others. Holding the fruits in her hand, Kinru's little face showed a smile, and she said excitedly, I don't know where the little gorilla got the fruits from, Da and the others are so cute to eat them. Who is Da? Touching his nose, Kinzu looked at his little sister in a daze. How come another Da appeared here? It's them. The little girl pointed her hand to the side, and there were a few little Alaskans squatting in the corner. It turned out to be them. Looking at the little Alaskans looking at this side with a bit of a smile, Kinzu felt a little weird in his heart. A Da? Could it be San? Before he could ask his question, the little girl told him with her actual actions. Ada, come here quickly, look how many delicious foods I found for you. Perhaps because they were trained by Zumengyo, although they saw the fruits in Kinru's hand early in the morning, they did not move. After receiving Kinru's call, the little guys ran over with their short legs. Here, each of you eat one first, don't fight over it. Kinru took out a few small fruits of different colors from the small basket in her arms, and carefully gave one to each of them. Fruits? Wait a minute. It was not until this time that Kinzu reacted and hurriedly looked at the basket in the little girl's hand. Hey, brother, what are you doing? Startled by Kinzu's sudden voice, the little girl subconsciously protected the small basket in her hand, and said with a vigilant face, these are all from Ada and the others, you can't snatch them from them. Kinzu stretched out his head and froze in place. He looked at this sister who he thought was very cute just now with a black line on his face, and said unhappily, brother, are you so hungry? Are you snatching food from them? Hee. Kinru also felt that she was a little too cautious. After laughing twice, she handed over the small basket in her hand reluctantly. Here, it's all here. I finally tripped it from the little gorilla. Brother, please don't. Although the little girl reacted halfway through her words and covered her mouth in time, Kinzu was so smart that he knew what she wanted to say by following her words. Little girl. Kinzu said word by word, looking at the innocent little girl in front of him with a dark face. Don't worry, I will never compete with dogs for food. Oh, she nodded timidly. Although she agreed, the little girl looked at Kinzu with some doubt. Because she had smelled the fruit, it was really fragrant. If it wasn't for keeping it for a few little Alaskans, she would have eaten the basket of fruits with tempting fragrance on the spot. Thinking of this, Kinru couldn't help but lick her lips with her little tongue, and carefully stared at her brother, fearing that he couldn't help but eat the fruit alone. At this time, Kinzu no longer had the heart to care about the little girl beside him. Looking at the colorful fruits in the basket, his thoughts instantly shifted to the pile of fruits in the backpack. Exactly the same. It was exactly the same as the fruits in his backpack. Could it be that there is another place in the world where this fruit is produced? Wait, little gorilla. Kinzu suddenly thought of the little girl who seemed to have mentioned the little gorilla just now, and couldn't help but look at her. Little sister, where did you say these fruits came from? Kinru, who was a little dazed, didn't react immediately, looking at Kinzu's blank eyes with some confusion. Brother, do you want it too? I don't know if it's still available. I cheated for a long time to get these. ... Thank you Fishy for your reward and support, thank you. Chapter 954 Prince's Private Soldiers. Just when Kinzu couldn't stand it anymore and was about to punish this naughty sister, Kinru finally reacted. Aha, what? Kinru laughed twice, paying attention to Kinzu's movements and carefully retreating. Brother, these are all from the little gorilla. If you want, go and have a look. It's really the guy. Hey, what are you doing? Touching his chin, Kinzu was about to take a closer look at the fruits in the basket, but he felt his hand loosen and the basket had been snatched away by the little girl. Lulu, Kinru stuck out her little tongue at Kinzu and ran to the side of the basket. I want to hide them and save them for Rita and the others to eat. After sitting on the sofa in a daze for a long time, Kinzu looked at Erica, who was laughing with her hands covering her mouth, and asked helplessly, "Do you think I look like someone who wants to snatch food from a dog?" This, after hesitating for a while, Erica finally gave her answer truthfully. Like her. Kinzu felt that there seemed to be something wrong with his ears. He looked up in disbelief, staring at Erica, who was sitting opposite him. "What did you say?" Ahem. This, being stared at by Kinzu's burning eyes, Erica, a retired Special Forces soldier, felt a little uncomfortable. After slightly adjusting her sitting posture, she didn't raise her head, but said in a serious voice, "Boss, I'm telling the truth." "The truth?" Kinzu stood up in a rage, pointed at himself, and said unhappily, "Your truth is that you, boss, am someone who might snatch food from a puppy." "No, that's not what I mean." Facing the somewhat exasperated Kinzu, Erica didn't seem to be afraid at all. She smiled and waved her hand, explaining, "Boss, what I mean is that even I, facing those fruits, have an urge to take them for myself." After a pause, Kinzu gradually calmed down and asked uncertainly, "Do you know this fruit?" "No, I don't." Erica's tone also became serious, and she said with some doubt, "Although I don't know it, I think it will be of great help to me. I have always had an idea in my mind, so let's eat it." "Anything else?" Hearing this, Kinzu's eyes narrowed involuntarily. It seems that this fruit is definitely not as simple as just delicious. No more. Shaking her head, Erica smiled and said, "Except that it will attract me unconsciously, there is no other information." "Okay, that's it for now." Waving his hand, Kinzu sat back on the sofa, rubbing his head with a headache. A fruit that will unconsciously attract people to eat it, and the effect is unknown. For some reason, the princes are now silent. There are still a few potential enemies in the island country, and I don't know what they are doing recently. And there is also the unknown Powell family in Boston. Kinzu suddenly felt that he had quite a lot of enemies now. He has been very honest, why do these guys still want to bully him? Perhaps it is just as the old saying goes, speak of Carlo and Carlo will appear. Kinzu was still thinking about the princes, and he heard Erica's sonorous report in his ears. "Boss, take a look at this." Picking up a document on the table and handing it to Kinzu, Erica explained, "Here is the information of the mercenary group that attacked us yesterday." "Oh, let me take a look." Coming back to his senses, Kinzu picked up the folder and opened it, reading it line by line from top to bottom. After a long time, Kinzu, who finally finished reading the information, said nothing. After closing the folder in his hand, he leaned back on the sofa and closed his eyes to rest. "Boss." Erica, who knew what the folder contained, shouted with some concern. "I'm fine." Kinzu waved his hand slightly, without opening his eyes, but his voice came out from his throat. "Erica, are you saying that this mercenary group called Grizzly is actually a private soldier raised by Prince Richard?" "That's about right." Nodding, Erica looked at the man who was resting with his eyes closed with some concern, and said, "The main reason is that even the people in this mercenary group don't know that they're actually a private soldier of the Arab royal family, so few people in the outside world know about it." "Then how did you find out?" Kinzu suddenly opened his eyes and stared at Erica. Could it be that this woman has connections with another military intelligence agency? "Boss, don't get me wrong." Erica shrugged and picked up another document from the side and handed it over. Smiling, she said, "Prince Hunter told us this." "Hunter?" Kinzu, who reached out to take the document, felt even more confused. How did Hunter get involved again? "Yes, Prince Hunter." Nodding, Erica confirmed Kinzu's guess, then pointed to the document and said, "Just this morning, Prince Hunter suddenly sent this over. Only then did we know that Grizzly Bear was passing by here with a mission this time. He saw that the conditions offered by the Powell family were too tempting, so you took this mission?" Yes. These guys are going too far." Until this time, Kinzu was really angry. What does this guy mean? Does he think killing himself is a very easy thing? Or does this guy not take himself seriously at all? Let Kinzu chatter on and on, Erica just watched quietly beside him without saying a word. Until Kinzu was a little tired of talking, he sat on the sofa, picked up the coffee that Dale had just drunk, tilted his head back and drank it all, then said, Boss, this is not the point. The point is that in the next period of time, our ranch is expected to become the focus of competition among several princes. Well, that's true. Smacking his lips, savoring the faint feminine scent in the coffee, Kinzu said thoughtfully. These guys have been quiet for a while, so they went to find someone. Of course, this matter is definitely not suitable to be spread out. Erica sat down beside Kinzu, pointed at the information in Kinzu's hand, and said with a smile, the people they chose this time are all reliable, or at least those who can be controlled by the team leader. After all, the more people who know about this, the more disadvantageous it will be for those guys who want to take it all for themselves. Now that you mention it, I suddenly have a good idea. Touching his chin, Kinzu pondered his plan, and his eyes became brighter and brighter. Chapter 955. Terms of Exchange. Erica, do you think they can get through if I don't let them pass through the ranch? Kinzu, who was sitting on the sofa with his eyes closed in thought, suddenly opened his eyes, looked at Erica beside him, and asked with a smile. It's definitely impossible. Smiling and shaking her head, Erica looked at the man beside her, recalling his endless tricks, and couldn't help but sigh. Even if we don't do anything, relying on those guys, we can make these mercenaries disappear without anyone noticing. Then do you think if we don't let them go, will they turn against us? It shouldn't be. After thinking for a while, Erica said uncertainly, after all, they don't want to make this matter known to everyone. No, they will. Kinzu pinched his chin lightly and said very affirmatively, it is precisely because of their determination to win that if we keep stopping them, they will definitely turn against us. At the time, let them even announce this matter to attract more people's attention. Then, what should we do? Just let them in. Erica was a little at a loss at this time. She has always been a good executor, or a good executor. Now, Kinzu suddenly asked her to consider such a big thing, and it was rare for her not to be stage frightened. No, we can't just let them in so easily. Kinzu closed his eyes again, as if he was talking to himself, or as if he was discussing with her, muttering, if we let them in so easily, they will definitely suspect me if they find something wrong. Then, what should we do? Erica felt that she was going crazy. Please, boss, can we finish talking at once? What do you want to do by saying half and leaving the other half? Well, let me think about it. Kinzu, who didn't open his eyes, of course didn't see Erica's somewhat crazy expression. He was still tapping his fingers from time to time, and the thoughts in his mind were also flashing quickly. Rolling his eyes, Erica stopped asking, and followed Kinzu's example, leaning back on the sofa cushion and closing his eyes to rest. Got it. Clap his hands. Kinzu suddenly opened his eyes, and a happy smile flashed across his face. He finally sorted out the thoughts in his mind. What? Frightened by Kinzu's exclamation, Erica hurriedly stood up. Sit. After smirking and motioning the female bodyguard beside him to sit down again, Kinzu said excitedly, Erica, what do you think? Let's talk to Richard. Talk about what? Looking at Kinzu, Erica was also a little curious about what bad ideas this man had come up with. Well, looking at his smirk, Erica was sure that this was definitely a bad idea. For example, we let them go, but they have to help us solve an enemy. As expected by Erica, the idea Kinzu said was indeed a bit mean. However, Erica felt that this was a really good idea. Looking at Kinzu with some excitement, Erica couldn't wait to ask, Boss, you mean, Powell? Yes, it's this damn guy. Nodding, Kinzu felt that his idea was simply perfect. In this way, he could not only give face to the princes, but also cleanly solve the somewhat difficult enemy beside him. But will they agree? Erica bit her lip. Although she looked excited, she was still a little worried after thinking about this question. Yes, absolutely. Unlike Erica's worry, Kinzu had a blind confidence in this. If nothing else, just for the three of them beside him, Kinzu felt that Richard would seriously consider his suggestion. Since he had made up his mind, Kinzu did not hesitate, picked up the phone and prepared to call Richard. Honey, are you up? Have you had breakfast? Kinzu, who had just found the number, heard Zumengyo's sweet voice coming from the door before he had time to dial it. Not yet. What have you been doing? Putting away the phone, Kinzu stood up and walked towards the door. Because at this moment, Zumengyo was also holding a small basket in her hand, which seemed to be filled with a lot of things. Nothing, it's just that your little gorilla, I don't know where it got a lot of fruits, but it didn't eat them, and just piled them there, as if it was for you. Raising the basket in her hand, Zumengyo's expression was a little strange, as if she also wanted to take a bite of the fruits in the basket. That guy again. Reaching out to take the basket, Kinzu looked carefully, and it really looked similar to the small blue fruit just now. However, the basket just now was a little small, with only about a dozen fruits in it. And this basket was filled with more than half. Eastern Standard Time estimated to be at least 60 or 70. Looking up, Kinzu noticed Zumengyo's eyes, and his heart moved, and he smiled and teased. Wife, don't you want to try one to taste it? Ah, yes, a little. Being seen through by Kinzu's thoughts, Zumengyo smiled a little embarrassedly. However, she still couldn't resist the temptation of the fruit, raised her head and looked at Kinzu with an expectant look, as if asking if it was okay. Hey, wife, I don't know what kind of fruit this is, so let's not eat it first. Kinzu regretted his bad mouth at this time. He knew that even Erika couldn't resist the fragrance of this fruit, so why did he ask nonsense? Fortunately, Zumengyo was not the kind of girl who knew nothing. She also knew that things should not be eaten randomly, especially this kind of colorful wild fruit. Haven't you heard of a saying? The more beautiful things are, the more dangerous they are. Therefore, after hearing what Kinzu said, she simply handed the basket to Kinzu. Take it away quickly. I don't know what this is. The more I look at it, the more I want to eat it. Haha, I didn't expect my wife to be a foodie. As a result, Kinzu didn't even look at the basket and put it back in his backpack. Anyway, now everyone in the family knows that he is extraordinary, so there is no need to hide anything. Humph, what do you mean by greedy? I'm not one. Being looked down upon by Kinzu, Zumengyo was a little dissatisfied. After sitting down on the sofa, she picked up a washed apple and took a big bite. While chewing, she muttered, it's not just me who wants to eat it. My little sister and Linyu, who doesn't want to eat it. Not to mention the people, even the little ones are drooling with greed. Chapter 956 Richard's frustration. In the end, Zumengyo didn't get any answers from Kinzu, because he himself only knew a little about this fruit, so how could he answer other people's questions? After eating something to fill his stomach, Kinzu didn't hesitate anymore, said hello to the beautiful Zhu, and went upstairs with his mobile phone. After all, this is also related to several lives, it is better not to let women know. If they are left with any psychological trauma, it will not be fun. Coming to the second-floor balcony, Kinzu lay on the lounge chair in the center of the garden, looking at Haha who was taking a nap on the wooden shelf, and dialed Richard's number. I don't know if it's because spring has come in, Haha seems a little restless these days. Even Pape, who has been incubating eggs in the nest, has become a little impatient because of Haha, and even Eva, who was feeding it, was almost pecked. Of course, for this reason, Kinzu pulled this guy out and gave him a good beating, regardless of the fact that it was still incubating eggs. So, when Pape saw Kinzu, he shrank his little head back. Hi, my dear friend, what's up? Kinzu, who was thinking whether to teach this guy a lesson, looked a little strange after hearing the familiar voice. Hi, Your Highness, you don't sound very well. No, Richard laughed twice. Although he had scolded the culprit in his heart, he would be lying if he said he had no guilty conscience when he suddenly received Kinzu's call. There was nothing he could do. He just wanted to raid his lair yesterday, but today the real boss showed up. Although he was a prince, he was also a human being, and he knew how powerful Kinzu was. Moreover, until now, there has been no news from the Grizzlies. Could it be that, thinking of this, Richard could no longer remain calm? He swallowed his saliva and asked uncertainly. Clean, how come you have time to call me today? Did something happen? Oh, it's a little thing, but I've dealt with it. Crossing his legs, Kinzu lay on the recline with a smiling expression on his face. If someone who didn't know saw it, they would think they were chatting with old friends. Who would have thought that they were talking about a matter of life and death? I've dealt with it. With a jump in his heart, Richard no longer cared about the etiquette of a prince, and asked in a somewhat hurried tone. Clean, what happened? How did you deal with it? Aha, it's nothing serious. Kinzu laughed and pretended to be very casual, and said with a smile. Just some guys with bad intentions who wanted to make trouble, but don't worry, I have dealt with them. Don't worry. Can I be assured? After Kinzu said this, Richard's heart sank even more. He knew how terrifying Kinzu was, and it was because of this that he let the grizzly guy sneak in with his men. But now it seems that the matter has been exposed. After a moment of silence, Richard did not ask any more questions, but said calmly. Clean, I think we should have a good talk. With pleasure. With a slight raise of the corner of his mouth, Kinzu gave himself a big thumbs up in his heart and gave himself a 90 for his performance today. The reason why he did not talk to Richard about the conditions of the exchange right away was mainly because of the issue of initiative. If Kinzu spoke about this first, then there is no doubt that he would be suppressed by the other party in the subsequent negotiations. But if he seized the initiative and controlled the overall situation by himself, then he would not have to worry about being at a disadvantage. Kinzu could think of this, and Richard, the calculating prince, certainly could not fail to think of this. So, after taking a deep breath, Richard asked calmly, "Clean, tell me, what do you need?" "Need? Oh no." He shook his head, and smiled at Richard's surprised expression. "I think you misunderstood, Your Highness. I don't mean to take the opportunity to blackmail you." "Then what do you want?" Richard frowned, and his tone became a little doubtful. Did he guess wrong? Wasn't this guy taking the opportunity to blackmail him? Just when I thought of this, I heard Kinzu say in a weird tone on the other end of the phone, "Your Highness, how dare I ask for anything? What if you get upset and get another team of mercenaries? I won't even know how to run away at the time." "Clean, these are all things of the past. Let's talk about the future." Richard was embarrassed by Kinzu's rebuke, but he still explained with a wry smile. "Besides, with your skills, ordinary people are no match for you." "Okay, then this matter is over." Shrugging his shoulders, Kinzu did not intend to continue to pursue the matter, but asked again, "Your Highness, are you familiar with the Powell family?" "Powell family? Who are they?" Richard, who had just breathed a sigh of relief, was stunned by this sudden question. "Ah? You don't know them?" Now it was Kinzu's turn to be a little surprised. "Are you kidding? You sent someone to kill me, and you don't know your employer? Is this Powell family very famous?" Richard scratched his head awkwardly. He felt that everything he had learned over the years seemed to be useless in front of Kinzu. "What about Grizzly? You must know this guy, right?" Kinzu asked tentatively with some suspicion. "Of course, Grizzly is a mercenary I hired to accompany me into the mountains." Hearing Kinzu finally mention Grizzly, Richard felt relieved and did not forget to defend them. "Oh, just to accompany you into the mountains?" Kinzu curled his lips and seemed very disdainful. "Why are you walking this way into the mountains?" "Of course, we just went into the mountains." Shrugging his shoulders, Richard explained a little embarrassedly. "Clean, this guy didn't cause you any trouble, did he?" "I let him take a detour, but I didn't expect him to be so reckless." "He is indeed quite reckless." Nodding, Kinzu showed a playful smile on his face, and teased, "Before coming to kill someone, you don't even know the target's situation, and you dare to walk in so brazenly. Who else should I bite?" "What, killing people?" Richard almost jumped up from the soft sofa in the living room. "How is it possible?" "Clean, I didn't ask him to kill people." Chapter 957. Liars and Politicians. Ha, this guy is quite reasonable. After some bargaining, Kinzu finally reached a consensus with Richard. He lay on his back on the recline, playing with his mobile phone in his hand, with a smug smile on his face. Powell, don't you dislike me? It just so happens that I don't like you today either." Since coming to the United States, Kinzu has always played the role of the bullied. Well, although he can always get back at his own game, he still feels a little aggrieved. Now he finally has a chance to bully others happily, and he doesn't have to rush to do it. It can be said to be perfect. He is proud, but Richard is a little depressed. After calling dozens of times in a row, the call was finally connected. Before the person on the other end could speak, Richard's hysterical roar came through the microphone. Fuck. Grizzly, I need an explanation, immediately, right now." "Your Highness, please listen to my explanation." Grizzly on the other end of the phone was obviously frightened by Richard's furious voice. He didn't care that the men around him were still watching him, and hurriedly explained in a low voice. "We were ambushed last night, and many of our men were poisoned by snakes. They are still receiving emergency treatment in the hospital, so we didn't have time to report to you." "Fuck. That's not what I want to hear." Without waiting for Grizzly to finish his words, Richard asked in a very low voice, "Grizzly, who gave you the courage to attack Kinzu? Can you afford to provoke him?" Your Highness." Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and there was a hint of trembling in Grizzly's voice. He explained uneasily, I just happened to see a commission, so I took it. By chance? Do you know how much trouble you've caused me?" Richard was almost pissed off by this guy's explanation. If Grizzly Bear was standing in front of him at this moment, Richard had no doubt that he would pull out his gun and shoot this bastard. Just because this guy took a commission, he had to help Kinzu solve the troubles around him. If it were a few homeless people, even a few ordinary people, Richard wouldn't say anything. Helping others is fun, and he's happy to be a good person. But that's a family that has a place in the American catering industry, not a few homeless people sleeping on the streets. Let's not talk about the economic strength of this family, just talking about their influence in Boston and the entire United States over the years. That is not something a few homeless people can compare to. Your Highness, you tell me what to do, I'm willing to take responsibility for this failure. With his head drooping, Grizzly Bear also gnashed his teeth in hatred for the guy who issued the commission. If at first, he was still a little dissatisfied with his inexplicable loss last night, then Richard's call completely dispelled the little thoughts in his heart. If nothing else, the fact that Prince Richard didn't dare to do anything to the other party showed how strong the other party was. Maybe he let him go yesterday because of Prince Richard's face. Otherwise, the armed helicopter would not have stopped so easily. Well, in Grizzly's mind, the helicopter yesterday was definitely a military armed helicopter. After all, such a strong firepower is simply not comparable to a few rifles. What else could it be except an armed helicopter? What should I do? Humph, I want to know what to do too. Richard rolled his eyes in annoyance. After venting his anger, Richard regained some composure. Thinking of what this guy said about his men being poisoned by snakes, he couldn't help asking, "How is it? Are the casualties serious?" "That's not bad." Speaking of this, Grizzly's mood also improved a lot, and he said with a hint of relief in his tone, "The ones sent were relatively timely, and the anti-snake venom serum prepared in the hospital here is also sufficient. Except for a few seriously ill ones, they are basically out of danger now." "Are there still some seriously ill ones?" Hearing this, Richard frowned slightly, thinking that Kinzu was really a fool. Why did he get so many poisonous snakes? Well, there are 3 brothers who were bitten by an unknown snake. The current anti-snake venom serum is useless. Shaking his head helplessly, the trace of relief in Grizzly's tone still existed. However, the reason why he felt fortunate this time was that he was lucky that he ordered the retreat early, otherwise, I don't know how many brothers would have to lie there. "Tell the doctor to give me the best medicine. If it doesn't work, transfer me to another hospital." Richard's voice sounded very decisive. He said in an unquestionable tone, "Grizzly, you have to remember that this time it was because of you that such a huge loss occurred. If they died in such a frustrated way, you wouldn't have to come back." After saying that, Richard hung up the phone without waiting for Grizzly to react. He was still a little depressed. "No, I can't bear this pot alone." After hanging up the phone, Richard turned around in the living room, thinking about how to complete Kinzu's damn task. He also thought that instead of completing this difficult task, it would be better to fight Kinzu directly. But every time he thought of the big guy who was 7 or 8 meters tall, Richard's heart sank. It was simply not something that human power could contend with. Thinking of this, Richard took out his mobile phone again and called Judd directly. "What did you say? Make them disappear? Are you kidding me?" Judd, who received the call from Richard, almost spilled hot coffee in his hand on the black skirt of the sexy female secretary opposite. Waving his hand, signaling the female secretary whose legs were a little weak due to fear to wait outside first, Judd sorted out his emotions and asked, "Richard, do you know what you were talking about? That's a family." "Man, of course I know what I am talking about." Rubbing his forehead, Richard said with a headache, "But this is the request made by Kinzu. As long as we can get rid of this guy, he will not interfere in our affairs." "What? Are you serious?" "Of course, man, when have I ever lied to you? TSK, you have lied to me less." Richard was choked and speechless. As a politician who was trained as a key figure, he really told a lot of lies. "Okay, I won't tell you for now. This matter is too big, I need to think about it carefully." Ignoring Richard's shout, Judd hung up the phone directly after he finished speaking, and then waved outside. "Nessa, come in, chapter 958. Someone is making trouble." "Well, you mean, the Tycoon ranch was attacked last night?" Judd, sitting behind that desk with his secretary in his arms, looked at a document in his hand with a puzzled expression on his face. The young secretary who was held in Judd's arms, felt the constant invasion of a pair of large hands on her body. Her speech became a little unclear and she said breathlessly, it should be. Someone heard a gunfight broke out over there yesterday, but when the police went there this morning, they didn't find any traces. Ha, it would be strange if they could find any traces. Shaking his head, Jard withdrew his big hands from the young secretary's tight skirt and exclaimed with a smile. I can't believe it, I can't believe it, there are actually people who are not afraid of death and dare to go after him. Feeling the large hands being retracted from under her body, although the young secretary was relieved, she also felt a constant sense of emptiness in her body. After hearing Jard's words, she couldn't help but ask subconsciously, Boss, is he very powerful? Powerful? No, he's not. Shaking his head, Jard leaned back in the boss chair, his thoughts returning to the terrifying moment. The 7 or 8 meter tall silverback gorilla, the more than 10 meter long golden python, and the jaguar that looked like a prehistoric beast, everything seemed like a sci-fi movie. If it's not powerful, why? Although the secretary didn't finish her words, Jard still understood what she meant, and couldn't help but smile and slapped her perky buttocks hard. Who said I'm afraid of the boss? I just don't want to have a head-on conflict with him. Who knows what powerful things this guy can do? Oh, is that so? The secretary's O was suddenly attacked, and she couldn't help but prolong the tail tone, which made Jard angry. You little devil, dare to seduce this boss, let me show you how I'll deal with you. Ah, boss, how are you going to deal with me? I'm so scared, really? Then let's go inside and see how I'll deal with you. The voices in the office became smaller and smaller, and finally disappeared completely. The whole space gradually returned to calm, as if no one had ever existed here. Oh, except for the guy who sneaked away at the door. Judging from her slender figure, she should be a woman. I just don't know why she was eavesdropping at the door of the office for a long time. Could it be that she also likes Jard, the son-in-law of the president's family, and wants to pay for him? After calling Jard, Richard didn't stop and called several younger brothers. Compared with Jard's shrewdness, Ben Kaza and the other 2 princes were not so difficult to deal with. After indicating that Kinzu would not participate in this matter, the 3 quickly accepted this condition. Well, of course, Richard was not stupid enough to say that this was his own trouble, but directly said that this was Kinzu's condition for not getting involved in this matter. Considering that Kinzu still had to live in the United States, it was indeed not convenient for him to do it himself. The 3 princes all said that this was absolutely not a problem for them. Killing a few people was really not a big problem for them. Although these guys were of high status and difficult to deal with, as long as they were not government officials, what else would they not dare to do? Anyway, it would be fine if they were not found out. After hanging up the phone, Richard, although relieved, also expressed his concern about the IQ of his 3 younger brothers. It is really fearless to be ignorant. These years of royal life have trained them a little crooked. It is estimated that if it were not for the royal family's support, they would have been eaten up by others without leaving any residue. However, whenever Richard thought that he might have mastered the secret of becoming a great druid, he would put this matter behind him. Now, the legend of the Archdruid is no longer a secret. Not only does the royal family know about it, but even Jard knows about it. This is why these guys are so enthusiastic about the forest. Otherwise, if it was just a simple adventure, they would not pay such a high price. And this is exactly why they are afraid of Kinzu. However, Richard could never have imagined that the things they dreamed of had already been taken by Kinzu. System, when will you be able to complete your evolution? Kinzu, who was lying in the garden on the 2nd floor, turned on the system and asked boredly after looking at the grey interface. I don't know, the mechanical voice of the system seemed a little embarrassed. As the saying goes, you can't eat a big fat man in one bite. If you eat too much at once, you will easily choke. This is the situation the system is facing now. There are too many things contained in that energy channel. Although the system met it up in a hurry at the time, it is now a little indigestible. I don't know. Kinzu pouted his lips, looked at the grey interface, and asked. In other words, I can't use the system functions before you finish the joke. No, the spiritual liquid exchange and pet functions are normal and are not affected. That's good, that's good. While breathing a sigh of relief, Kinzu also opened the points exchange. Looking at the remaining more than 10 million points, he couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. I'm now a person with savings. More than 10 million points, enough for me to exchange for so many spiritual liquids. Kinzu was a little excited just thinking about it. There is no way, the effect of the spiritual liquid is really too good to use. It can be compared with the magic medicine. Well, of course, the side effects are a bit tricky, but he likes it. Ding-ling, ding-ling. Just when Kinzu fell into a beautiful fantasy of the future, he was interrupted by the ringing of the mobile phone beside him. Hello, Brother Chen, what's up? After checking the caller ID and finding it was Chen Mu, Kinzu put on a bright smile and picked up the call happily. However, after hearing a few words from the other end, the happy expression on Kinzu's face gradually disappeared. Are you saying that someone is maliciously slandering our restaurant? No, not only that, there are also many gang members messing around in the restaurants we are building. Chen Mu on the other end of the phone looked at the blonde guys laughing and joking on the construction site, with a helpless smile on his face. Did they do it? Kinzu frowned, and his expression became more gloomy. If no one deliberately came to stir up this mess, then it must be them. Chen Mu smiled bitterly and shook his head. He never thought that the revenge of those guys would come so quickly. Chapter 959 Dealing with Trouble. Boss, do we really have to deal with these small matters? Can't we just let our sisters go over there? Isn't this a bit too much of a fuss? Sitting in the soft position of the helicopter, the female bodyguard Erica asked Kinzu in front of him in confusion. Maybe he felt that if his group of people were to deal with this matter with all their minds, then they would feel that it was a bit too much of a fuss. But at this time, Kinzu was squinting his eyes and sipping the red wine in his hand very leisurely, as if he didn't listen to the doubts of his female bodyguard at all. When seeing that Kinzu didn't answer her for a long time, the female bodyguard next to him had to retreat to the side. On the surface, this matter is indeed a small matter, but if I don't deal with it, it will only make these people more arrogant. Anyway, there is nothing else around me recently, and the women around me don't bother me all the time, so I just go out to relax. Just when Erica was about to turn around and leave, Kinzu opened his eyes slightly, and then said this to the group of people next to him in an extremely leisurely manner. Near his first-class cabin were all Kinzu's bodyguards and followers, and the female bodyguard Erica was standing in the front. In fact, Kinzu's main purpose of dealing with the gangster was not at all. He mainly wanted to go out and relax. After all, it was really depressing to stay in one place all the time. It would be better to go out and play with these gangsters. Oh, so that's what the boss meant. It seems that my idea is indeed too stupid. I was wondering why the boss would waste Zausing for these little hooligans. Don't worry, the boss won't need to do anything at the time. We sisters can completely beat him down. After hearing the explanation of her boss, the bodyguard Erica in front of her finally understood the real intention of her boss, and then hurriedly patted her chest to assure him, as if to express her firm position. At this time, Kinzu just smiled slightly, and then leaned back in his seat to rest again. Damn, I was planning to have a few days of leisure, but I didn't expect that such a thing would completely disrupt my plan. It seems that my plan can't keep up with the changes. Forget it, since these gangsters are so itchy, let's go over and give them a break. Although Kinzu looked very leisurely, he was still very unhappy deep down in his heart, because he could have lived a very leisurely life these days. And there was no pressure in life these days, but this sudden phone call completely disrupted his plan, and the culprit of this incident was the gangsters who were making trouble far away. I don't know what those gangsters want to do. Kinzu muttered in his heart, and the plane soon arrived at the destination Kinzu was going to. Fuck, look at these people's aura, there are so many beautiful bodyguards around them, it seems that this man has reached the peak of his manhood, when can I be as good as this man? Just when Kinzu and his group got off the plane, their aura was so strong that some people around them were amazed. Because Kinzu was walking in the middle, and there were a group of female bodyguards protecting him, as if he was a national leader attending a meeting, and some otakus around him began to drool with envy. Excuse me, please stop hanging your head here. This is not something you can follow him to chat about. You'll look so lazy. If you just think about playing games and chatting all day, you will never reach this level. When the man with messy hair said this, a middle-aged woman next to him glared at her unhappily, and then mocked her secretly. After that, she pushed her shared bicycle away, leaving the loser boy alone in a daze, as if he was imagining this moment one day. Kinzu completely ignored their envious looks, because he had seen too many of them. Am I too powerful? Why do I feel that everyone around me has already regarded me as the object of attention? Kinzu next to him touched the stubble on his chin, and then smiled bitterly in his heart. In fact, Kinzu was wearing black sunglasses and a black leather jacket at this time, so he looked cool. Erica, have you arranged our car? Let's not stay here too long. Since these gangsters are arrogant, let's go over and deal with them properly. We can't let them go on like this, otherwise I really don't know how many eyes I, Kinzu, have. Kinzu didn't waste too much time after arriving at the airport. After all, he came here for a purpose, so he said decisively to the bodyguard Erica next to him. He just wanted to see if the bodyguard Erica had arranged all the itineraries for him. But after Kinzu said this, the female bodyguard in front of him took out a tablet from her backpack and pondered on it for a while. Boss, I have already handled all our matters for him, and now we have locked on the target of those gangsters. I heard that he seems to be eating at some food stalls in the West Street district. We can go there now and completely get rid of him. After the female bodyguard in front of him fiddled with the tablet in her hand, she took out a few photos and placed them in front of Kinzu. Kinzu glanced at them casually and saw a few men in vests eating and drinking there. They looked like Shaolang's gangsters. Si est escuchando esta novela en un canal distinto a mundo fanfic novelas, significat lo descarga and y subir en cines fuerzos invitamos cordialmente a visitar nuestro canal. Mundo fanfic novelas all encontras la versión original de esta historia y podrás explorar muchas otras novelas de diversos narradores. Te esperamos para sumergirte en un mundo de novelas incredibles. Chapter 960. Money to get things done. Not bad, not bad. I feel that my Erica seems to be doing things faster and faster. I feel that your efficiency is getting faster and faster. After I solve the problem here, I will definitely give you a good salary increase. At the time, I will definitely reward you well. As long as you stay with me, Kinzu, I will never treat you badly. At this time, Kinzu nodded with satisfaction, and then did not forget to praise the bodyguard Erica next to him. When hearing these words of praise from Kinzu, Erica in front of him lowered her head embarrassedly, and her little face looked red. Thank you, boss, this is what I should do. There is no need for the boss to do anything like a salary increase for me here. The female bodyguard in front of him said to Kinzu in front of him in a shy manner. When Kinzu saw the appearance of Erica, he still felt a little bitter. Usually, Erica in front of him always looked cool and cold in front of outsiders, as if she was a nice bug beauty. Moreover, some of his combat styles also seemed very good, but when Kinzu suddenly saw Erica, who looked like a little woman in front of him, he still felt a little uncomfortable, and then he took his group of people into a Lincoln limousine. Boss, why don't you take a short rest here first? After all, you are tired from the flight. I will remind you when we reach the destination. Erica, who was next to him in the Lincoln limousine, was very considerate and even took a coat to cover Kinzu in front of him, as if she wanted her boss to have a good rest here, but Kinzu was not sleepy at all at this time, probably because he only had a short rest on the plane. It's okay, it's okay. My physical fitness is not that bad. By the way, if I go to trouble those gangsters directly, will it seem a bit too much? Will they feel that I, Kinzu, am a bit petty? At this time, Kinzu suddenly thought of something in his mind, and said to Erica next to him with a confused look. He also glanced at the other female bodyguards nearby, just to ask for their opinions. Kinzu was their boss after all, and the other bodyguards didn't dare to say anything even if they had other opinions. Boss, are you thinking too much? After all, those gangsters obviously want to cause trouble. We are completely a frontal counterattack, so this shouldn't be considered a show of weakness. The girl Erica in front of him said to Kinzu in a shy way, but Kinzu was just bitter after listening to it, and he knew that the female bodyguard in front of him didn't tell him her real thoughts at all. Maybe he really took into account his current status as a big boss, so he didn't continue to embarrass them, but kept thinking in his mind. Forget it, since I want to let these little friends taste some bitterness, and I want to take direct action, and it seems that he has lost some of his status, then why don't I let them fight each other? People say that fighting in a nest is the best performance. How nice it would be if I let them fight each other directly. When Kinzu kept thinking about the whole thing, he could only have a bold idea in his mind, that is, to let these gangsters kill each other, so that he can not only completely avoid the problem of losing his status, but also let them suffer. Soon the car came to a busy street next to it, and Kinzu got off in front of the street market entrance, because the street in front was really too congested, and it was not appropriate to drive directly over. You just wait here first. After all, those gangsters in front can't cause any big waves. I'll let Erica be my personal bodyguard and you just lurk around here. If there's any emergency, I'll deal with you then. After getting off the Lincoln stretch car just now, Kinzu said this to the other group of bodyguards and girls next to him. He felt that if his group of people moved forward in such a mighty manner, it would seem a little too conspicuous, which would quickly attract other people's attention. Kinzu has always been a very low-key person. When hearing Kinzu's arrangements, the bodyguards looked at each other. They probably didn't expect their boss to have such a plan, but Erica nodded slightly to everyone. Brothers, how is the food here? Kinzu came to the front of these gangsters in a casual manner, and then spoke to them in a lukewarm manner. Kinzu's appearance also scared these gangsters. Who the hell are you? A sturdy man with tattoos on his body yelled at Kinzu with disdain, as if expressing his dissatisfaction with Kinzu's appearance. Ha ha ha, it seems that my brother is really too unfriendly. I am here to deal with these little things with you. We may have some personal grudges. If you have the courage, we can go to a quieter place to solve it. Kinzu smiled at them, and then said something cruel, and then turned and walked forward. He knew that these young hooligans were very proud and complacent. So they would definitely want to fight with him to the death, but when Kinzu turned and left, the other hooligans put down their chopsticks and spoons in their hands, and followed Kinzu to a small alley next to him. TND, who the hell are you? How dare you point fingers at us brothers here? A big man in front of him pointed at Kinzu's nose and cursed. Don't worry about who I am. Now I can give you $1 million, but the premise is that you have to fight each other here. Kinzu said to them indifferently, and took out a black bank card directly from his pocket. Chapter 961 The Temptation of Dollars. What? Several gangsters dressed in trendy clothes looked at each other. Is this guy sick? Noticing the surprise and hesitation in the eyes of several people, Kinzu showed a disdainful smile on his face, turned around and waved at Erica. Soon, Erica brought a leather suitcase and opened it in front of Kinzu. Here, $1 million is here, but only one of you can get it. Pushing a box of US dollars that still smelled of ink forward, Kinzu hugged his arms and looked at the gangsters opposite with a bright smile on his face. Gong, gong. At this moment, none of the gangsters spoke, and everyone looked at the box of green Franklin in front of them with shining eyes. For these gangsters who have been wandering outside for a year and can't save $10,000, $1 million is simply an astronomical figure. Now, this astronomical figure is just in front of him. Moreover, the way to get them is very simple. That is, beat up the guys around. Well, Kyle, let's beat up those guys and share the money, shall we? These hooligans were completely tempted by the money. After all, this was a lot of money. If they could really get these US dollars, they might really live a life like rich people. This is a bit inappropriate. If we just beat up our brothers, will the brothers in the underworld point fingers at us? Although they were all eyes on the white cash on the ground at this time, they still had some concerns about the ethics of the underworld. Kinzu was watching them make their choices. Kinzu seemed very relaxed at this time, as if he was watching a group of monkeys perform a big show. Boss, there is no need for us to play with them like this. This will only cost us more. If we give them this money to squander, it is better to donate it directly to the welfare home. Maybe it was because the female bodyguard next to him always thought that Kinzu's behavior was not appropriate. After all, if these gangster pharmacists could earn so many US dollars just by fighting among themselves, then they could be considered to have oil and water, and Kinzu and his security had the strength to crush these gangsters. Ha 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 ha, you don't know this, this is called spending money to buy fun. I don't care about these two stinky money, as long as they can make me happy here, then I am willing to throw this money in their faces. At this time, Kinzu leaned against the wall of the alley, and then a cigarette fell out of his pocket, and the bodyguard Erica next to him looked very discerning, so he hurried forward to light Kinzu. Damn, are you going to do it or not? Don't forget, there is a lot of silver underneath. If we keep on wasting time, then the money might really be swallowed by others. The yellow-haired hooligans who first proposed the suggestion began to get anxious, feeling that his brother was really too slow, and that he might be thinking about the cash, so he stepped forward and kicked the butt of Kyle next to him. Forget it, since we can get so much cash, the worst that can happen is that we will just stop hanging out with them in the future. Anyway, we're just drinking buddies. Kyle was still a little entangled, he might feel some resistance in his heart, but when he saw his brother next to him urging him like this, he had to make up his mind. Then the two of them looked at each other, and then slowly walked towards the other yellow-haired hooligans. Ha ha ha, it looks like a good show is about to begin. I knew that these guys would do anything for their own benefit. When Kinzu saw this guy and his Kyle brother walking forward, he knew that the good show was about to begin, because the little thoughts of the two of them could not be hidden from Kinzu's eyes. And Erica Bao, who was standing next to him, had been standing in front of Kinzu, fearing that these people would suddenly counterattack. After all, she was Kinzu's personal bodyguard and had to ensure Kinzu's safety at all times. What do you two want to do? Do you really want to sell out your brothers for these stinky money? When they saw the two yellow-haired gangsters walking towards him, the other three people standing next to him began to get anxious, and said this to him loudly. While talking, they secretly looked at the cash on the ground with their eyes. Okay, stop pretending to be a big guy here. Who doesn't want this cash? If I can get all this cash in my pocket, then I can squander it for a while. Kyle didn't waste too much time with these people. He just spoke loudly to them, because they were only so easygoing on the surface. In fact, they already had their own little thoughts deep in their hearts. The three people standing aside had already started fighting, and because Kyle and the two brothers next to him had already formed an alliance, they just took advantage of it here. TMD, can't you let me help you beat it down here? You just bear it here for a while, and when I get the money back, I will definitely give you a part of it as a pension. The yellow-haired gangster kicked a man who looked a little thinner next to him, and then stepped on his arm tightly, as if he had no sympathy at all. Just now, they were sitting at the table chatting and laughing, as if they were all very good friends, but now they have started fighting, all because of the pile of cash on the ground. It seems that money is really a good thing, it can actually change their behavior directly. Kinzu sighed, while the girl Erica next to him frowned and watched them fighting here without saying a word. You two beasts, you dare to attack your brothers, aren't you afraid that the brothers in the underworld will spit on you? Chapter 962. The heart is separated from the belly. Because Kyle and his brother had joined forces, the other three were soon beaten to the ground. They were all groaning in pain, and their bodies were extremely twisted. The worst thing was that one of them had a severely twisted arm, which looked like a serious bone fracture. Alright, stop pretending to be pitiful here. Everyone knows who you are. Kyle said to the people lying on the ground, and his tone revealed dissatisfaction, as if there was no sympathy at all. You are. Just as Kyle turned around and wanted to walk towards the scattered cash, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his back, and then he saw a sharp dagger stacked on his shoulder, which made him feel a little incredible. Why? Why did you do this to me? Didn't we agree? Kyle never dreamed that his brother would actually do something to him in front of his junior. He always thought that this guy might really want to join forces with him, but at this moment he had realized his mistake, and the dagger had already pierced his shoulder, and blood kept flowing along the tip of the knife. Ha 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 ha, you are really too naive. How could I share so many US dollars with such a stupid friend like you? Open your eyes quickly, this is a lot of money. When seeing Kyle looking at him in shock, the yellow-haired gangster in front of him did not repent at all, but laughed out loud. After saying that, he touched the stubble on his chin with a smug look on his face, as if he felt that he had already grasped the victory at this time. You are so sinister. I finally see your true face. I really misjudged you. Kyle said to the gangster in front of him with a sad face, and the gangster kicked him aside. That's because you are too stupid. Since I can join hands with you to deal with them, why can't I knock you down? The gangster in front of him said with disdain, and then turned directly to the direction of the scattered cash on the ground. Damn, you dare to cheat me, I won't let you have an easy time. Just when the gangster was about to pick up the cash on the ground, Kyle, who was stabbed in the shoulder, rushed over directly, and then slapped the gangster's neck with a palm. His speed was so fast that even Kinzu and the female bodyguard next to him didn't guess it. The yellow-haired thug groaned in pain on the ground, his facial expression was very painful. After such a fight, none of the five of them could stand up. It seems that you are really too greedy. Since you like money so much, I will give you all the money. Kinzu didn't care about their current appearance, but just picked up the box of cash from the side, and then generously poured all of it on them. The amount of cash was originally very large, and when it fell on the ground like this, the scene was very spectacular, and the thugs were like crazy, desperately hugging the cash into their arms. Ha 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 ha, we're rich, we're finally rich. The voices of the thugs seemed very loud, as if they wanted to tear their throats directly there, and Kinzu shook his head helplessly. Boss, are you really going to throw all this money directly to these useless hooligans? Isn't this a bit of a waste of resources? Erica agreed that it was not appropriate to do so. After all, for a normal family, this was also a considerable amount of money. Ha 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 ha, you really think too simply. These people can't get a penny, and they will be despised there. Kinzu laughed loudly, and then walked slowly forward, leaving Chain Mew, the bodyguard, alone there in a daze, not knowing what his boss was talking about. My god, why is there so much cash here? Why is there so much money here? This must be some local tyrant who is giving away money here. Just when Qinzhu and Chen Mu, the bodyguard, had not walked far, they heard some people shouting there, and then saw some middle-aged aunts and passers-by next to them stop their steps one after another, and then they all threw themselves on the hooligans. "What do you guys want to do? Don't rob us of our money, don't rob us of our money, what on earth do you want to do? Return our money first." Then the heart-wrenching howls of the gangsters lying on the ground were heard, like an old sow protecting her piglets, but their voices were quickly suppressed by the voices of the middle-aged women and the passers-by nearby. "Ha ha ha ha, I knew these guys wouldn't have a good ending. There's no such thing as a pie in the sky. Who wouldn't want so much cash? How could it be the turn of these half-dead guys?" Qinzhu didn't even turn his head at this time, because he had already expected such a scene, but just walked forward slowly and easily. At this time, bodyguard Chen Mu admired his boss very much, and felt that his boss was like a god who could predict the future. It seems that he is really an interesting man. The gorgeous appearance is all the same, but there is only one interesting soul. Well, Qinzhu didn't know that in a corner, a little girl was talking secretly. In fact, all the scenes on Qinzhu's side were seen by Chen Mu. Soon he quickened his pace and came to Qinzhu's side. "Oh, how can it be so coincidental that I can actually meet you guys here? It seems that it is really destined to meet each other." Chen Mu pretended to be very surprised and said this to Qinzhu in front of him and that bodyguard Erica next to him. Her appearance also scared Qinzhu and Erica next to him, and then she smiled at him. The author has had a little quarrel with his girlfriend. His recent state is very bad. In order to earn 600 yuan, he barely wrote a few chapters. Brothers can skip and read. Liu Un will get back to the state as soon as possible. The following stories will be more exciting. Chapter 963 Chen Mu's idea. "Boss, you?" After coming to Qinzhu's side, Chen Mu looked at the gangsters lying on the ground, and his mind was a little confused. "You were called here to deal with things. You dealt with these guys, but what about the future?" "Ha ha, brother Chen, don't worry." As soon as Qinzhu saw Chen Mu's look, he knew what this guy was worried about, and couldn't help but smiled and comforted him. "Soon someone will help us solve the problem, let's stop working here temporarily." "What? Stop working?" Chen Mu opened his mouth in surprise, his expression seemed a little incredible. "Well, all construction sites are closed to avoid all conflicts for the time being." Shrugging his shoulders, Qinzhu did not explain why, but smiled and said, "Brother Chen, you can also take a few days off temporarily. You must be exhausted during this period. It's okay to be tired, but it's true that there are a lot of things to do." Nodding, Chen Mu was not in the mood to be happy about his upcoming rest. He asked with some worry, "Boss, are those 2 stores going to close too? If they take action, they will definitely not let go of our 2 brand stores." Qinzhu hesitated now. He didn't think so much, but just thought that it was better to avoid the Powell family for the time being. "Brother Chen, do you have any good suggestions?" After hesitating for a moment, Qinzhu still cast his eyes on Chen Mu beside him, wanting to hear his opinion. "Boss, I think we should continue to work on the things we should do, just slow down the progress." After thinking for a while, Chen Mu looked around again, and then said, "Boss, your purpose is just to delay time. Let's work on multiple fronts at the same time, so that even if they want to start, they have to consider which one to start first." "That's fine." After pondering for a while, Qinzhu scratched his head again when he saw the gangsters lying on the ground. "What should we do with these guys? I can't always deal with them, right?" "That's easy." Glancing at the gangsters lying on the ground, Chen Mu smiled and said, "I have already inquired clearly just now. These guys are just gangsters from the neighborhood. They came to make trouble after receiving money." "What do you mean?" Qinzhu's eyes lit up a little. For him, problems that can be solved with money don't seem to be a big problem. Ahem, of course, he just thought about it in his mind. "Boss, it's just what you think." Chen Mu nodded with a smile, and as he followed Qinzhu to the car, he stretched out his thumb and index finger and rubbed them together, saying, "We just need to discuss with the nearby gangs. I believe they will be happy to help us solve this problem." Then, here comes the problem. Qinzhu, who got into the car, spread his hands helplessly. "Excuse me, who knows where to find these guys nearby?" Chen Mu was a little silent. If you asked him to find a high-end club nearby, he would definitely find one. But, you asked him, a 3-star chef, to find gangsters? He really couldn't do such a thing. "Boss, I think I should know." Erica, who had been silent in the co-pilot seat, turned around at this time and said with a smile, I have dealt with them several times when I was on a mission before, so it shouldn't be a problem to find them. Ah, have you dealt with them before? Kinzu looked Erica up and down, and couldn't help but uttered a few words of praise. It seems that American soldiers don't enjoy life as much as rumored. What do you think? Erica rolled her eyes and ignored Kinzu. She turned around and began to point the way to the driver. Soon, under Erica's command, the group arrived at the door of a small bar in the western suburbs of Boston, which looked a bit dirty. The shabby solid wood sign was hung diagonally on the door beam of the bar, and there were some messy wires hanging on the sign. Obviously, it was a neon light used for lighting at night. The letters painted with black paint on the sign were so badly fallen that Kinzu could no longer see what he wanted to express. Ah, Erica, are you sure it's here? Looking at the bar sign in front of him that seemed to be about to fall off with a gust of wind, and then turning around to look at the somewhat desolate land around him, Kinzu cast a somewhat suspicious look at the female bodyguard beside him. No matter how you look at it, this doesn't look like a place where those gangsters stay. Why not? After shrugging her shoulders, Erica asked back, and then went forward and knocked hard on the closed door. But it's not like that on TV. Kinzu curled his lips and followed behind, his face full of confusion. Isn't it all shown on TV? Those underworld bosses are all dressed in suits, and they go in and out with bodyguards, beauties and luxury cars. As if she understood what Kinzu was thinking, Erica knocked on the door of the bar and said helplessly, "Boss, you know, that's on TV, how can it exist in reality? Do you really think the FBI is vegetarian?" "That's right, they all eat meat." Shrugging his shoulders, Kinzu also felt a little stupid. Think about the Mad Dog in the past, didn't he live in a remote area? It seems that those mafia and the like are really rare in reality. Squeak, with a crisp sound, the old wooden door of the bar was opened from the inside, and a white man in ripped jeans walked out. "Why are you knocking? It's not open yet." Go, 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 the white man yawned and waved his big hand impatiently, as if he was driving away flies. Clay, Erica looked at the big hand waving in front of her with a dark face, gritted her teeth, and said with a hint of coldness in her tone, "If your hand moves again, I promise it will no longer belong to you." Before she could swear, Clay stopped talking in time, standing stiffly in place, with one hand raised high, as if she was about to wave it down at any time. "Hey, you are so brave, come on, hit me." Glancing at the big hand raised in the air, Erica's face was like a layer of frost, looking very cold. Ellie, Erica, you are joking. How dare I fight you?" Clay took 2 steps back with a wry smile, and quickly retracted her raised hand. At the same time, she couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat from her forehead, as if she was glad that she had just escaped. "HMPH, don't talk nonsense. I ask you, where is that guy Ike?" Erica pouted her lips and asked directly without any intention of teasing this big guy. Boss, Clay, who was just glad that she had escaped, hated herself a little at this time. "When I got off work today. Why did I sleep here lazily? It would be great if I wasn't here at this time." Chapter 964 Ike, speak or not. Without any nonsense, Erica took out a pistol from her bosom and put it directly against Clay's forehead, just like the previous times. "Here you go again." Clay groaned in pain in her heart, closed her eyes, and said directly, "The first room on the left on the 2nd floor, the old place. It would be great if you could do it earlier." After blowing a whistle, Erica performed a gunflower very handsomely, put the pistol back into her bosom, turned her head and said with a smile, "Boss, let's go up, the guy should still be sleeping at this time." "Sleeping?" Kinzu looked at the time and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "It's already afternoon, okay?" Kinzu was a little surprised when he saw the white car yawning just now. He didn't expect that even the boss was still sleeping now. "Ha, boss, this is a nightclub, and they have a reverse day and night." Chen Mu, who was beside him, heard this and interrupted with a smile. "For them, this time is the same as our midnight." "Okay." Kinzu looked around and confirmed that this was a bar that was still open, and said with a smile, "Then is it a bit inappropriate for us to disturb them at this time?" It's okay. Erica hadn't spoken yet, and Clay, who had a bitter face just now, came over with a smile on her face. "Sir, I wonder if you have something to ask our boss, or I can help you wake him up?" As the saying goes, a younger brother should have a keen eye. At this time, Clay had already noticed the difference. When Erica came before, she was so high and mighty that even her boss didn't dare to say anything harsh in front of this woman. But now, in front of this Asian man who looked like a gigolo, he was as docile as a kitten. Needless to say, Clay could also understand that this Asian man was unusual. Either the young master of a family or the young master of a big company. And these princelings are the most feared and loved by these gangsters. So, no matter from which aspect, they can't afford to offend this man. Oh? Then please tell him that I have a big business waiting for him. Looking at Clay in surprise, Qin Zhu didn't hesitate to smile and nodded to signal him to call the mysterious Ike. For Qin Zhu now, it's just a small gangster, so there's really no need to take him too seriously. Big business. Clay's breathing became rapid. She glanced at Qin Zhu and the others, said nothing, and ran upstairs. At this time, his heart was already filled with Green Franklin. Boss, let's go sit over there. After looking around, Erica pointed to the booth next to her and smiled and gestured to Qin Zhu. Well, go sit down and wait for a while. I don't know how fast this guy is. Looking at the second floor, Qin Zhu smiled and followed Erica to the booth. However, Ike's speed was beyond Qin Zhu's imagination. Or rather, Clay's speed in calling people was beyond Qin Zhu's imagination. He had just arrived at the booth and had not had time to sit down when he heard a series of footsteps coming from the stairs next to him. Ha ha, Captain Erica, long time no see. Why didn't you say hello before you came? With a hearty laugh, a white man wearing a white shirt, jeans, and a trace of tiredness on his face walked over quickly. Perhaps because he got up in a hurry, he buttoned one of the buttons of his white shirt incorrectly, which made him look a little funny. However, no one laughed at him. Because just from his attitude, he was already worthy of respect from Qin Zhu and others. The ancient said, "If someone respects me 1 foot, I will respect him 10 feet. Although this guy is just a small gang leader, Qin Zhu will not speak to him in a condescending tone just by virtue of his attitude towards several people. Hello, Mr. Ike, I'm sorry for disturbing you by coming to visit me." After Erica greeted the other party, Qin Zhu also took the lead and extending his hand, with a smile on his face that was a little apologetic. After all, he was disturbing someone's sleep, and he was indeed a little sorry. Aha, I've heard a lot about Mr. Qin. After laughing, Ike stretched out his hands and shook them tightly with Qin Zhu, complimenting him. Just because you dealt with that mad dog guy, it has relieved the younger of us brothers. Mr. Ike is joking, it's his own fault. With a smile, he gently pulled his hand back, sat down on the booth, and gestured to the opposite side. Mr. Ike, let's sit down and talk. Yes, yes. After hearing what Qin Zhu said, Ike hurried to the booth and sat down, and did not forget to turn around and yell at Clay. You bastard, don't you see Mr. Qin is here, why don't you bring up their drinks and snacks? Oh, okay, I'll be right there. Clay nodded in surprise and walked down with a head full of doubts. Mr. Qin? Haven't heard of this person in Boston. But looking at the boss, it seems that Mr. Qin is very famous. Could it be that I am really out of date? Without caring what his little brother who should be dragged out and shot thinks, Ike turned around and asked a little stiffly. I wonder if Mr. Qin has something to do this time? From the moment he heard that Erica was come in, Ike felt a little uneasy. Others might not know, but as someone who had been dealing with Erica all the time, how could he not know that this woman had retired and was now a full-time bodyguard? And Ike had also heard of the person she was protecting, the ruthless man who had defeated the Mad Dog clan that had been rampant in Boston for many years. Thinking back to the time when he heard that Mad Dog and his backers, as well as the backers of his backers, none of them escaped alive, Ike had already made a decision for himself in his heart. He must not provoke this evil star. Because this Asian from China not only did not play by the rules, but was also ruthless and showed no mercy to others. However, looking at the young Chinese sitting opposite him, Ike sighed in his heart, as if the more he worried about something, the more it would happen. As for the big business that Clay mentioned when she called him to get up just now, Ike now had basically given up hope. Of course it's to discuss business with Mr. Ike. Didn't I just say that there is a big business to discuss with you? Looking at Ike's somewhat restrained expression, Qin Zhu suddenly felt a strange feeling in his heart. It seemed that he was like this when he met the leader before. When did he have the ability to make others feel restrained? Chapter 965 The police are here. Mr. Qin, what do you mean? After listening to Chen Mu's narration, Ike looked at Qin Zhu with some doubts and expectations. Judging from the current situation, as long as they find a powerful gang, they will not refuse this task. Because it is too simple. Isn't it just to watch the place and deal with a few gangsters? Of course, just like what Brother Chen said, it's that simple. Shrugging his shoulders, Qin Zhu didn't say anything nonsense. He took out a checkbook from his arms and wrote a few strokes, After tearing it off, he handed it over directly. This is 1 million. As long as you can guarantee that there will be no peace in these places within a month, the money is yours. 1 million, he swallowed nervously. Like those gangsters, he was not a person who had never seen money, but facing this 1 million that could be easily obtained, Ike was still a little excited. He reached out and quickly took the check handed over by Kinzu. As if he was afraid that he would go back on his word, Ike patted his chest and promised. Mr. Clean, don't worry, I'll take care of this. In that case, I'll trouble you, Mr. Ike. Nodding, Kinzu put the checkbook back into his arms, stood up with a smile, and said goodbye. We won't bother you anymore, I'm leaving first. Hey, okay, Mr. Clean, take care. As a pure white man, Ike doesn't understand the etiquette of Oriental people. Seeing that Kinzu was about to leave, he didn't mean to persuade him at all, but felt excited. There was nothing he could do. After all, he was the boss, and he was not used to being so humble all the time. After saying goodbye to Ike, the group walked out of the somewhat shabby bar. Looking at the sign that was about to fall down, Kinzu couldn't help but ask worriedly, Erica, is this guy really capable? Of course. Shrugging, Erica opened the car door and said with a smile, Boss, don't underestimate him. He can be ranked in the top 10 in the underground forces in Boston. Only top 10? Kinzu leaned back casually with a pout, and said worriedly, what if the Powell family is looking for the top 3 guys, can he stop them? How is that possible? Rolling her eyes, Erica signaled her men to drive, and said with a smile, Boss, do you think those top guys in Boston are that simple? Let alone the Powell family, even the Duck family will not provoke them easily. Ah, so scary. Kinzu couldn't help but be amazed when he heard it. Kinzu didn't know what the Powell family was like, but he had personally experienced the huge power and energy at the Douglas family. Of course. Turning around, looking at Kinzu with a somewhat suspicious expression, Erica explained with a smile, Boss, do you think I mean that they're not easy to mess with? After hearing what Erica said, Kinzu reacted somewhat, and pointed in the direction of New York uncertainly. You mean, there? That's for sure. Erica nodded and said helplessly, there are so many cities, and all the forces ranked in the top few, which one doesn't have a huge energy behind it to support it. That's true. Now, Kinzu completely believed Erica's words. It has been like this since ancient times. It's easier to get things done if you have someone in the court, even in capitalist countries. Although it is said that without the support of those big shables, it is difficult for the president to do things, and it is not certain whether he can even be the president. But in the same way, without the support of the president, those big shables can't jump up. Boss, where are we going now? After a pause, seeing that Kinzu hadn't said anything yet, Erica couldn't help but turn around and ask again. Haven't you left yet? Looking out the window in surprise, Kinzu realized that his group was still staying where they were. Let's go home first, and talk about it when we get back. With a shy smile, Kinzu simply lay down on the recliner and closed his eyes to rest. After a lot of trouble, Kinzu and his friends finally arrived at the Tycoon ranch when the sun was about to set. When standing in front of the villa, looking at Zumengyo and Diva coming out from inside, Kinzu couldn't help but feel a warm current in his heart. Perhaps, this is the feeling of home. Well, of course, it would be nice if he could hug two women at the same time. Holding Zumengyo's slender waist, Kinzu kissed her fair little face hard while thinking about this question in his heart. How is it? Have you dealt with it? Reaching out to help Kinzu take off his coat, Zumengyo handed it to Eva while looking at Kinzu with a smile. Of course. Kinzu shook her hair proudly and said with a smile, with your husband taking action, what can't be handled? You're so conceited. Zumengyo pouted and deliberately attacked him without giving him face. Don't you see how long you have been here, and everything has happened? Aha, so what, where are all the family members? Why don't I see anyone? Kinzu laughed and looked around awkwardly. They all went back. Zumengyo giggled twice upon seeing this, and stopped attacking him, but said, it's boring for them to stay here without you, so they went back first. Nodding, Kinzu stretched, and said with a smile, finally we went back. So many people were crowded together, it was so noisy. Oh? Really? Hearing what Kinzu said, Zumengyo raised her head and teased with a smile on her lips. Shouldn't you feel very happy? So many beautiful girls surrounding you, how happy you are. That's impossible. The expression on his face froze, and Kinzu defended himself with some guilt. It was not a coincidence for them. Yes, they just happened to meet each other. Oh, so that's it. Rolling her eyes at Kinzu, Zhu Mengyo seemed to suddenly think of something, and did not continue to pursue the matter, but said, "By the way, not long after you left today, the police came, and they even came to the ranch to check." "What? Police?" Kinzu was stunned when he heard this, and he couldn't help but wonder, what did the police come for? "Yes, but the female bodyguards guarding the door said that they would not let them in without your order." At this point, Zhu Mengyo shook her head with some sighs, and had a new understanding of the inviolability of private territory in the United States. These girls, the police can come, why not let them in? After coming to his senses, Kinzu smiled helplessly. Although he felt that these girls did nothing wrong, he was a little scratching his head when he thought of Stella. Now that the police were stopped, it would be difficult for him to explain. Chapter 966. Prepare to take action, boss. It's not as simple as you think. Dale walked in from outside, looking at Kinzu who looked relaxed, and said in a serious tone, "None of us called the police, and the place where the fight took place was relatively remote, and it was midnight. How did the police find us?" "What do you mean?" Kinzu frowned when he heard that. He felt that Dale's words seemed to be pointed. "I asked Mr. Stella, and he didn't call the police today." Walking to the two of them, Dale nodded to Zhu Mengyo first, and then looked at Kinzu. "No police called?" Frowning, Kinzu didn't say anything else, took out his mobile phone, and called Stella directly. "Hey, Clean, you were not here for the police call, are you?" "We really didn't call the police to your manor today." The phone was picked up after only 2 rings. Hearing the helpless tone of Stella on the microphone, Kinzu was also a little confused for a while. "Really? Oh, God. I swear to God, really? Then can you find out which police station sent the police?" At this point, Stella's voice was a little embarrassed. If he really checked, he would certainly be able to find out which guy went out of his district to handle the case. But in this way, he would definitely offend the guy who was against Kinzu. That's right, Stella already understood at this time, since the police dared to come to Kinzu to investigate without his approval, it meant that someone must be targeting him. "What? Is it not possible?" Seeing that this guy didn't say anything for a long time, Kinzu knew that he must still be struggling, so he emphasized his tone. "Stella, you have to know that if something really happens, I can close the ranch and go back to my country to enjoy myself. If there is anything here, don't blame me." Okay," sighing helplessly. Seeing that Kinzu said so, Stella didn't know what to say, shrugged and said, "Clean, wait a moment, I will help you check it out." "Okay, I'll wait for your news." After a few more polite words, Kinzu hung up the phone directly, with a somewhat uncertain expression on his face. It seems that what those guys said is indeed right. The power of the Powell family is indeed not small. After muttering to himself for a few times, Kinzu looked at Dale beside him again. "Dale, you have to do a good job at protecting the villa. Don't worry about other places for now. I have my own arrangements." "Okay, boss, I'll go right away." Nodding, Dale said hello to Zhu Mengyo again, and then walked away with those 2 long legs. "What? Are you in trouble again?" After Dale left, Zhu Mengyo's little brows couldn't help but frown. "Ha, wife, don't worry. It's just a little trouble. Someone will take care of it in a few days." After laughing, Kinzu hugged Zhu Mengyo horizontally and said with a sly smile, "Instead of worrying about this, you might as well worry about what to do at night." "What to do? What time is it?" Zhu Mengyo, who was held in Kinzu's arms, looked at the sky outside, and her little face couldn't help but blush. "Put me down quickly, we have to eat dinner later." "What are you afraid of?" "I'll eat you." Ignoring the struggle of the beautiful Zhu, Kinzu carried him horizontally and walked upstairs. At this time, Zhu Mengyo had basically given up resistance and let Kinzu hold her like this. Under the strange gazes of Eva and Kinru, they rushed up to the 2nd floor and entered the master bedroom. Bang! With the bedroom door being slammed roughly, the 2 people in the living room who were stunned came back to their senses. Well, Sister Eva, Kinru, who was sitting on the sofa on the other side, carefully glanced at Eva beside her and asked tentatively, "Aren't you jealous?" "Jealous? Why?" Blinking her big blue eyes, a trace of confusion flashed across Eva's face, as if she really didn't know what jealousy was. That's it. After hesitating for a long time, Kinru still plucked up the courage and asked in a very distressed tone, "It's just that when you see my brother and sister-in-law together, you don't feel bad?" Well, why should I feel bad? Should I feel bad? Eva turned her head and stared at Kinru with some doubts, her pretty face full of doubts and confusion. Why not? Isn't he a man? This time, it was Kinru's turn to have a trace of confusion in her big eyes. She asked with some doubt, "Don't you feel uncomfortable when you see a man with another woman?" "Why should I feel uncomfortable? He didn't abandon me." Shrugging her shoulders, Eva stood up and walked to the kitchen, smiling and said, "Shaoru, you have to understand that for your sister-in-law, I'm the third party who intervenes. She is the one who should feel uncomfortable. Do you understand?" I understand." Although she said that she understood, Kinru's childish face was full of doubts. "Wouldn't being a third party make you jealous?" Shaking her head, Eva did not stay here any longer, but turned and walked to the kitchen. However, no one noticed the trace of sadness on her face after she turned around. If there is a choice, who would be willing to be a third party for others? "Richard, are you serious? Kin really won't participate?" Looking at the expressions of the other people in the multi-person video and listening to the somewhat excited voice of his silly brother, Richard's expression was a little cold. "Yes, Ben Carter, don't worry, this time it will definitely not be as weird as last time." In order to prevent others from noticing the changes in his facial expressions, Richard lowered his head and pretended to be flipping through a thick folder on the table. "Here are all the industries and members of the Powell family worldwide." Yes, that's right, all the industries worldwide. Since he promised to help Kinzu eradicate this family, he would not leave any sequelae to Kinzu. This is the pride of being a prince and the confidence of being a member of the royal family. "Okay, Richard, if that's the case, I think we can start taking action." On the other side of the video, Judd, who was lying on a luxurious big bed enjoying the gentle massage of two white women, said with a smile, "I heard that someone is targeting Kin now. If we don't act quickly, Kin might regret it. In that case, let's start taking action tomorrow." Richard, whose expression had returned to normal, raised his head and said with a smile, "I have collected the information here. Do you need me to send you a copy? Thank you for your reward from Know How Hard I Work, and thank you for your reward of 588 book coins from Looking Forward to Confusion. Si estás escuchando esta novela en un canal distinto a Mundo Fanfic Novelas, significa lo descarga and y subir en Sinisfuerzos invitamos cordialmente a visitar nuestro canal. Mundo Fanfic Novelas all encontrarás la versión original de esta historia y podrás explorar muchas otras novelas de diversos narradores. Te esperamos para sumergirte en un mundo de novelas incredibles. Chapter 967 Got Punished. Fuck you good for nothings. In a luxurious villa in Boston, Powell, the head of the Powell family, looked at his men in front of him and wanted to shoot them all. After all the effort and energy, he couldn't even deal with the yellow monkey. Why are his restaurants still operating normally? Why are those useless police officers transferred back? Why are those 2 3-star restaurants still operating normally? Reaching out and patting the coffee table in front of him, Powell stood up and glared at his men who were hanging their heads in front of him with his somewhat vicious eyes. "Who of you can tell me what's going on?" Facing Powell's glare, several middle-aged white men looked at each other. In their opinion, this was just a small friction. Was it necessary to make such a big scene? It was precisely because of this idea that when they saw Kinzu tightened his defense line and became very low-key, several guys casually gave orders to their men. In other words, these guys didn't take it seriously at all. The young master was just having a quarrel, and they just needed to get back at it. But now facing the cannibalistic eyes of old Powell, the guys were a little scared. "Chairman, please give us another chance," a white man who looked a little shrewd said before the other brothers in distress could react. "Please rest assured, I will definitely catch the yellow monkey for you personally." "Well, do you have the confidence?" Seeing that someone finally understood, old Powell took back his sharp eyes. Although he looked scary just now, he really wouldn't do anything to the guys in front of him. After all, this is a critical moment, and these guys are one of the most important core members of his Powell family. How could they move casually? However, if he didn't show these guys a little color, they really wouldn't take him, the chairman, seriously. "Of course, it's just a yellow monkey, don't worry, chairman." Patting his chest vigorously, Koppel glanced at his companions with a somewhat smug look, as if to say, "See, the opportunity came so inadvertently. As long as I can do this well, how can the chairman not look down on me?" The other middle-aged white men were all envious of Koppel's boasting. If I had known that the chairman was so concerned about the yellow monkey, wouldn't it be better to kill him earlier? Yes, just go and kill the yellow monkey soon. As if they had thought of a good idea, the guys looked at each other, and a hint of cold smile appeared at the corners of their mouths. Qinzu was unaware of what happened in this luxurious villa. At this moment, he was sitting on the sofa in the living room, bored, looking at the two sisters who were reluctant to leave, and said with a smile, "It's just to go for further studies, there's no need to be so reluctant, right? People who don't know would think I did something to you." "With you?" Raising her head, wiping a few tears from the corners of her eyes, Dale raised her fist at Qinzu and said disdainfully, "If you dare to touch us, one punch will put you in the hospital, believe it or not." "Oh?" Qinzu immediately became energetic. Anyway, Zumengya was still running outside with a few little guys and hadn't come back yet, so he could tease this girl. "One punch can put me in the hospital. You look down on me too much, don't you?" With a cold snort, Dale didn't say anything, but the disdain in her eyes was still seen through by Qinzu. This little girl, Qinzu pouted secretly, stood up decisively, and walked towards the two girls. He really wanted to see if Dale would let him go to the hospital directly. "What do you want to do?" Seeing Qinzu really stood up and walked over, Dale jumped up from the sofa as if she was a frightened little rabbit. "What a fuss. I came to see if fever was ready. Is it necessary to react so strongly?" Although he laughed in his heart, Qinzu pretended to be disdainful on his face, as if to say, "See, you said you would send me to the hospital, but I haven't even come yet, and you can't stand it." "You?" Staring at Qinzu, Dale's big eyes were full of reproach, but there was no anger at all. It seemed that she also enjoyed Qinzu's little teasing. "How's the cleaning going?" Ignoring Dale's complicated eyes behind him, Qinzu sat down next to Weaver, naturally put his arms around her elastic waist, and said with a smile, "After you go there, you must study hard. I'm still waiting for you to help me here." "Okay, I see." Nodding vigorously, Eva said embarrassedly, "Isn't there Sister Mengyo now? Can't you just leave it to her if you have anything?" Qinzu smiled and said softly, "She has her own things, and these things are yours, so you must study hard when you go there, and then come back to help me take care of the ranch." "Okay, I will." Nodding her head seriously, Eva looked at Dale and said with a smile, "Sister, after I go to Montana, you can take care of Keen more. He is very interested in you." "Pa." "Oh." Before she finished speaking, there was a pa sound, and Eva quickly jumped up from the sofa, covered her little butt with her hands, and rolled her eyes at Qinzu with a blush on her face. "What are you doing? My sister is still here." "So what?" Qinzu sniffed his nose and said with a sly smile, "Who told you to talk nonsense? If you talk nonsense again, you will be punished by the family law. TSK, whether you are talking nonsense or not, you know it in your heart." Eva glared at this guy unhappily, turned her head to look at her sister, and just wanted to say something, but she saw a big slap on her butt again. Slap. Ouch. With another cry, covering her aching butt, Eva said to her sister who had just done something bad, "What are you doing again? I didn't say bad things about you." This is not bad words. Then what is? Dale rolled her eyes at her sister charmingly, and her eyes were full of complicated emotions when she looked at Qinzu. To say that she doesn't like him, it's definitely not realistic. After all, when her family was in the most critical moment, he was the only one who lent a helping hand. Moreover, it happened more than once. But to say that she likes him. Dale glanced at her sister, thinking about the main wife living in the villa and so many female bodyguards outside. She felt a little uncomfortable. Who said that European and American women are willing to share their partners with others? Chapter 968 Departure. Little John, hurry up, hurry up. If you delay that boss's time, I will definitely not mind teaching you a lesson again. Early in the morning, old John's rough voice rang out in the living area, startling several cowboys who were going to work and waking up from their sleep. This guy, at such an old age, still has such a loud voice. Opening his eyes in a daze, Little John forced himself to get up and answered loudly, I'm come in. Hey, really, isn't it still early?" Mumbling and rubbing his eyes, Little John went straight into the bathroom and started to wash up. "Hey, kid, is it still early? It's already 8 o'clock. Old John, who was standing downstairs, yelled at the upstairs with great dissatisfaction. It's no wonder he was anxious. Where in the world can you encounter such a good thing? A worker, the boss actually paid for him to continue his studies. Of course, what he didn't know was that in some large companies, there would be similar training and further studies. However, those basically require long-term contracts, and there are many restrictions. People are not like Kinzu, who has no requirements and comes purely for the purpose of cultivating talents. 8 o'clock. Little John was shocked when he heard this. It was indeed a bit late to get up at this time. But, didn't he set the alarm yesterday? Why didn't it ring? With doubts, Little John packed himself up as quickly as possible under the urging of his father. But when he came downstairs and saw the wall clock, he was shocked to find that it was only 7 o'clock. Oh my God, didn't you say it was past 8 o'clock just now? Why is it only 7 o'clock now? Covering his forehead, Little John looked at Old John with a look of despair. Oh? Is that so? Shrugging his shoulders innocently, Old John walked out and said, "Maybe I saw it wrong. Don't worry about these trivial matters. Let's go find that boss first." Trivial matter? Well, Little John had to admit that it was indeed a trivial matter. Scratching his hair in annoyance, Little John sat down on the sofa and said weakly, "Dad, do you think the boss will get up at this time?" Touching his head, Old John remembered that his boss was also a sleepy guy. After hesitating for a moment, looking at the sun that was already high outside, Old John still said, "It's okay, even if he doesn't get up, it's the same if we go there first." Okay. Shrugging his shoulders, Little John also gave up resistance, forced himself to follow Old John and headed towards the villa. It was a bit unexpected for the father and son that when they arrived at the villa, they found that it had become very lively. Not only Dale and Deepa were busy packing up, but even the hostess Zumangia was busy making breakfast with the help of Kinru. "Hi, Old John, you're here." Kinzu waved to the two people at the door, yawning on the sofa with his back, and a trace of tiredness on his face. There was no other way. Last night, he and the beautiful Zhu had been in bed for more than 3 hours, and they didn't fall asleep until after 1 in the morning. But he knew that it was only early in the morning, and he was pulled up by the energetic Zumengyo, saying that she was going to see Eva off. Kinzu was really a little bit amused and helpless about this. You know, the departure time they set yesterday was after lunch. What about now? It's only 7 o'clock in the morning, okay? What made him even more headache was that the things had been almost packed yesterday, but these women didn't know what was wrong, and they had to open and check again. Looking at the woman next to the living room, who was sticking out her hips and carefully helping Eva check the luggage, Kinzu couldn't help but feel a little impulse in his heart. The arc is really too tempting, isn't it? Ahem, boss. Old John, who came to Kinzu's side, couldn't help but cough twice in embarrassment. "Oh, you're here, sit down." Kinzu came back to his senses and quickly retracted his wandering eyes. He pretended to sit up straight and looked at Little John and asked, "How is it? Have you packed your things?" "Yes, they're already packed." After sitting down on the sofa opposite, Little John looked at Kinzu without blinking and asked, "Boss, when are we leaving? I want to know too." Shrugging his shoulders, Kinzu pointed at the women who were still busy, and said helplessly, "Wait and see what they say." They had agreed yesterday to go after lunch, but after breakfast, the women were already a little impatient. Blinking their big eyes, Zumengyo and Deepa whispered a few times, then came to the sofa, half leaning against Kinzu, and said with a hint of coquettishness in their tone, "Honey, why don't we send Sister Eva over first? It's a good opportunity for us to go to the university for a stroll, what do you think?" So early. Looking at the time, it was only 10 o'clock in the morning. Kinzu couldn't help but look at Zumengyo with some doubts. "Yes, go early, we can go for a stroll nearby." Nodding, Zumengyo showed a matter-of-fact expression on her face. So simple. Kinzu narrowed his eyes, always feeling that something was wrong, but he really couldn't figure out what was wrong. Of course, what else do you think? Seeing that being soft didn't work, Zumengyo simply stopped acting like a spoiled child. She stood up, pouted her lips, and said angrily, "Are you going or not? If not, we'll go by ourselves." Go, of course." Scratching his head, Kinzu stood up with a bit of a smile and said to Little John beside him, "We're leaving soon. Do you want to go back and tell Old John?" "Boss, that's not necessary." Shaking his head, Little John was quite surprised. Why did they make such a big deal about going out? Not only did he not understand, but even Eva herself didn't quite understand. Isn't it just going to school? At most, you can just send her to the airport. Why do you have to send her to school? Is she that unbearable? She's so old, but she can't even find a school. However, she was smart and didn't say anything, nor did she show any reluctance. After all, it was Zhu Mengyo who helped her prepare all this. Since everyone was okay, Qin Zhu didn't waste any time. After changing his clothes upstairs, he took Zhu Mengyo, Eva, Dale, Little John, and a few female bodyguards on a helicopter to Boston. As for Qin, the little girl was originally very excited to come along. After all, it was very attractive for her to see the university campus in a foreign country in advance. But her wish was soon extinguished by Qin Zhu's cold water. According to Qin Zhu's original words, they are going on a long journey this time. You can't even speak English. What if you get lost? Although she knew that her bad brother deliberately didn't take her, the little girl had no choice but to stay at home to watch the door. Chapter 969 Montana. Montana. This state is ranked 4th in terms of area in the United States and is located in the northwest of the United States. However, contrary to its huge area, its population is sparse. According to statistics, there are only less than 1 million people living on this land of 381,100 square kilometers. What does this mean? This is equivalent to only 2 people living on every square kilometer of land. It is no exaggeration to say that you may not meet a single person even if you drive around here for an hour. Qin Zhu has a deep understanding of this. Dale, are you driving in the wrong direction? How come more than half an hour has passed and I haven't seen a single car? In a stretched Lincoln speeding on the interstate highway, Qin Zhu looked through the window, looking at the constantly changing scenery outside, and teased Dale in the driver's seat. Hey, boss, you underestimate me too much, don't you? Before Dale spoke, Eva, who seemed a little depressed today, retorted with dissatisfaction. My sister can cross the primeval forest without getting lost, how could you find the wrong place? Okay, just kidding. Qin Zhu, who was retorted, touched his nose and looked helpless. He didn't know what was going on. Since she got off the plane, this girl's behavior has been a little abnormal. She was very excited before leaving, but why did she feel depressed when she arrived? Qin Zhu was puzzled. That's right, how could Dale not find that place? Seeing this, Zhu Mengyo looked at the navigation on her mobile phone and smiled to smooth things over. We're almost there, shall we go eat first? Let's eat first, I'm starving. Touching his belly, Qin Zhu made a decisive decision. He had been flying for so long, and he was already hungry. If the food on the plane was not so bad, he would have eaten a lot on the plane. Ahem, he actually wanted to do this, after all, he had eaten worse than that before. Although he is rich now, he doesn't think there is anything to be picky about. However, his behavior was strongly suppressed by the beautiful Lady Zhu. According to her original words, if you eat those junk foods, I will kick you out. Of course, this is her subtext. The gentle and virtuous beautiful Lady Zhu will not spoil the mood like this. Creak. A moment later, when Qin Zhu felt that he was so hungry that he could not walk, the extended Lincoln rented by the snack bar finally stopped in front of a restaurant in downtown Bozeman. Hey, man, this is a tip, please take us in quickly. Before the receptionist finished her welcome speech, Qin Zhu had already taken out a brand new Franklin and gently shook it in front of her. Oh, sir, this way please. The eyes suddenly lit up, and the blonde and blue-eyed female receptionist, who had a good figure, did not even bother to greet the guests who came in behind her, and took them to a corner. Hubby, don't tell me I know you next time you go out. Covering her forehead, Zhu Mengyo made a look of disdain, leaned towards Eva, and muttered. Eva, look at this, he looks like a starving ghost reincarnated. And he's been starving for more than 10 years. Is that so? Scratching her head in confusion, Eva, who was completely unfamiliar with the terms that came out of Zhu Mengyo's mouth, casually agreed. That's right, Satan won't forgive him. Her expression froze, and Zhu Mengyo realized that the person sitting next to her was a real American girl. And she was a real American girl who had never been abroad. Although she had studied Chinese hard and could almost communicate normally, Eva said that she was completely confused by those strange terms. Hey, what are you guys talking about? After quickly ordering what they wanted and asking the waiter to come up quickly, Qin Zhu handed over the menu and asked with a sly smile. The two of them were talking loudly just now, not to mention that Qin Zhu, although he can't be said to be observant, but at such a close distance, some small movements can't deceive him. HMPH, I won't tell you. After pouting and ending the awkward chat with Eva, Zhu Mengyo also started to order food. For girls like them, meat like Qin Zhu likes, they usually don't touch it. Therefore, every time they eat, Qin Zhu will enjoy special treatment alone. Okay, then you order slowly. I'll have some snacks to fill my stomach first. Shrugging his shoulders, Kinzu took several plates of prenatal snacks handed over by the waiter. Just as he put 2 pieces into his stomach, something suddenly occurred to him, and he asked vaguely, "By the way, wife, what do you think of it here?" "Here? It's pretty good. The air is very good." Shaking her head with some confusion, Zumengyo handed the menu to Eva beside her, and asked with a smile, "What's wrong? Husband, do you want to buy a house here?" "I don't have the idea of buying a house." Shaking his head with a smile, Kinzu reached out to take a drink, and said while drinking, "Although we don't buy a house, we can build one." "What? Build our own house?" After listening to Kinzu's answer, Zumengyo was stunned for a moment, then reacted and said, "Husband, are you planning to move the ranch here?" "No, not necessarily. Let's see how the situation is." Shaking his head gently, Kinzu was actually hesitating in his heart. Before coming to Montana, he really had no such idea, because the air quality in several places he had visited in the United States was not as good as that in Boston. Especially in Boston, it is close to the Appalachian Mountains, which Kinzu likes very much. But after coming to Montana, Kinzu found that this was the most suitable place to open a ranch. Not to mention the Missouri River and the Yellowstone River, the Flathead Lake with an area of 490 square kilometers alone guarantees the irrigation of the ranch. Compared with the Appalachian Mountains, the Rocky Mountains are obviously more in line with the standards of the virgin forest. Who let the Rocky Mountains still have Indian tribes? Combining these 2 points, Kinzu had the idea of moving the ranch here. In addition, the princes and the good son-in-law of the president have always been brooding over his Tycoon ranch, which gave Kinzu a reason to be moved. But the problem now is that the dam system has not yet completed the absorption, which makes him a little overwhelmed. After all, the biggest support has not spoken yet, and he dare not make a decision easily. I'm sorry to all my readers. I was really too busy before the holiday and really couldn't spare the time to write. I would like to thank all my friends who have always supported Liu and those who have given me rewards in the past few days. Thank you very much. Salute and wish you a happy May Day in advance. Chapter 970. The Grove. The spring breeze was gentle and the sun was warm. On the tree-lined avenue of the Bozeman campus of Montana State University, several figures slowly walked. Wow, is this a university? Why does it look like a park? Walking on the tree-lined avenue with unknown flowers on both sides, Eva finally regained her lively side, and walked in front with Zumengyo in a joyful look. It should be, if our lovely Miss Dale didn't take the wrong way. Shrugging his shoulders, Kinzu teased Dale again, and then stopped an Asian-looking young man from the side, ready to ask for directions. However, before he could speak, the guy bowed and spoke a few bird words. From the island country. Kinzu scratched his head in confusion and looked at Zumengyo beside him. He couldn't understand Japanese. Hey, honey, this is from Korea. After shrugging her shoulders and greeting Kinzu, Zumengyo whispered a few words to the young man and then sent him away. How is it? Did you find out? When Zumengyo came back, Kinzu couldn't wait to pull her forward, as if there was something scary behind him. Well, I found out, honey. What are you doing? After walking a few steps quickly, the beautiful Zhu, whose breath was a little uneven, rolled her eyes at Kinzu in annoyance. Hey, I'm not doing anything, I'm just afraid that I can't control myself. Kinzu explained with a smile. Can't control myself? Zumengyo looked over with some doubts. Yes. Nodding as a matter of course, Kinzu curled his lips and said unhappily, Look at the look in that guy's eyes, as if he wants to eat people, he just stares at you and won't let go. After hitting Kinzu a few times in anger and amusement, Zumengyo glared at him with a reproachful look. Don't talk nonsense, what are you talking about? Let's go. Although she scolded Kinzu, Zumengyo felt a sweet feeling in her heart. After being together for so long, this guy showed that he cared about her for the first time. Not to mention her, even Dale and Erica who were following behind them looked at each other again. Is this still the philandering boss? The only one who didn't change his expression was probably Little John. I don't know if he really didn't understand or didn't listen to the conversation between the few people. He took his camera and kept taking pictures. Although Montana State University is ranked only more than 100 inches the United States, its environment is absolutely impeccable. The university town built on the Rocky Mountains is not only beautiful and pleasant, but also has the fragrance of green grass in the air. Honey, we're here. This should be the place. After asking for directions, the pace of the few people obviously quickened a lot, and soon they arrived in front of a 3-story building. According to the introduction of the Korean youth, this is the political and educational department outside the institute. Ahem, of course it is definitely not called this abroad, but the meaning is almost the same, and it is just temporarily used. This time, Kinzu did not follow in, but sent bodyguards to follow Eva and Little John, letting them handle everything by themselves. There is no way. It is said that in the United States, if parents are accompanied when going to school, they will be laughed at. Because in the eyes of them who are very independent, they are adults when they are 18 years old and do not need to stay under the wings of their parents for protection. However, their group staying here is indeed a bit eye-catching. Hi, beautiful girl, can you meet me? No, thank you. After helping Zumengyo reject a rich second generation who came to chat for the third time, Kinzu finally couldn't bear it anymore and pulled her aside. Hey, husband, where are we going? Aren't we going to wait for them? Being pulled by Kinzu, Zumengyo was a little confused, but she didn't want to struggle. Nothing, I just saw a small forest, let's go in and hide. Listening to Kinzu's serious words, Zumengyo almost vomited blood. Still need to hide. But looking at his serious look, the beautiful Zhu lowered her head helplessly and followed him in like resigned to her fate. However, she regretted it as soon as she came in. How could this guy come in to hide? This guy is clearly looking for a place to take advantage of her. Old husband, let's go back at night, okay? Zumengyo almost cried when she grabbed Kinzu's mischievous big hands. When had she ever had such an experience in her life? You know, although there are fewer people here, it's just a few children. The footsteps that sounded from time to time outside the woods proved everything. Okay, let's talk about it when we get back. Although he wanted to continue to vent his anger, Kinzu's heart softened when he saw Zumengyo's pitiful appearance. He didn't really want to do anything bad, but when he was in college, he often heard Wang Ming, the second oldest in the dormitory, talk about those unknown secrets that happened in the grove. It's just a pity that he could only listen at the time. After all, falling in love is a luxury. His family is not very well off, and his monthly living expenses may not be enough for others to go out and play once. So, now that he entered the university campus and saw the long-lost grove, Kinzu would think of something wrong next time. Ding-ling-ling, just as the two were sorting out their clothes, Kinzu's mobile phone suddenly rang. He took it out and saw that it was still Eva calling. However, before he could answer the call, he saw a pair of young men and women in ragged clothes suddenly appearing in the bushes not far from the next door. Damn, there are people doing this in broad daylight. Kinzu's eyes almost popped out after staring at the backs of the two for a long time. He really didn't expect that he would see such an exciting scene on his first day here. Yeah, you're so shameless. Zumengyo, whose face was slightly red, glared at Kinzu hatefully. She didn't expect to encounter such a thing in broad daylight on the school campus. Because of this, she was a little resentful of Kinzu who pulled her in. Okay, wife, let's go, they are starting to urge us over there. Kinzu laughed twice, and didn't dare to answer Zumengyo's words. He quickly changed the subject and walked out. HMPH, just wait for me, I'll settle the score with you when I get back. Zumengyo, who had long known that Kinzu would not confess so easily, stomped her feet helplessly and followed him. However, she also began to think about how to teach this guy a lesson. Chapter 971 BMW Supercar. After a busy day, it was already late when Kinzu and his friends accompanied Eva and John to register. Looking at the sky, Kinzu smiled and suggested, why don't we just leave it at that today? We'll talk about the rest tomorrow. Since Kinzu had spoken, basically no one would refute him, and they all nodded in agreement. So, under the leadership of Dale, they found a hotel nearby to stay and prepared to continue the unfinished itinerary the next day. The next morning, after breakfast at the hotel, Kinzu led a group of people to the supermarket near the school. As for why they had to go to the supermarket so early in the morning, it's very simple. Eva and Little John were going to live on campus and needed to buy some daily necessities. Yes, under Kinzu's arrangement, Eva and Little John were going to live in the school. One reason was for safety. After all, living in the school was much safer than renting a house outside. The other reason was a little hard to say. In fact, the main reason why Kinzu didn't let them rent a house outside was that he was afraid that Little John would take the opportunity to steal his girlfriend. Well, there is no way. Kinzu still has some understanding of Westerners' aesthetics. In their eyes, Chinese people, and even Asians, all look similar. If it weren't for the kindness of saving her father, Kinzu would not believe that this girl would offer herself voluntarily, and even when he has a girlfriend. Therefore, after deciding to live in the school, they still need to purchase some bedding and daily necessities. Unexpectedly, Eva and Zumengyo, who had just returned from shopping and were somewhat excited, looked at the large green space next to the school and suddenly had the idea of preparing for a picnic. If ordinary people want to have a picnic, although it is not too troublesome, they need to prepare at least 1 day in advance. But Kinzu and his friends are different. After Zumengyo expressed her intention to have a picnic, everything needed for the picnic was ready in less than half an hour. Beep, beep, just as Kinzu and his friends were busy and preparing to make a delicious meal by themselves, a hurried car horn interrupted their actions. When they put down their things and looked over, they found that on the huge lawn, a light blue BMW supercar was honking at them. What? Such a wide road is still in their way? Kinzu frowned, and seeing this situation, there was a hint of anger in his voice. I don't know if it's because of his improved status, but now Kinzu simply can't tolerate provocations from others. I didn't expect that there would be 2 ignorant guys today, driving a broken BMW supercar, and dare to show off in front of me. Boss, I'll ask them to leave. Seeing Kinzu's expression was a little unfriendly, Dale, who always knew how to read people's expressions, hurriedly got up and walked towards the ignorant supercar. Hey, boss, isn't this guy the Korean guy from yesterday? Erica on the side suddenly said with some curiosity. Huh? Is it that guy? Kinzu, who had turned around and was about to continue grilling the chicken wings in his hand, immediately turned his body back. Sure enough, who was sitting in the passenger seat of the light blue supercar if not the guy he stopped to ask for directions yesterday? What does this guy want to do? Kinzu put down the iron stick in his hand and walked towards them with big strides. He still hasn't forgotten the way that guy stared at Zumengyo with shining eyes. Fuck. Let us go. Why do you think you can do that? As he got closer, Kinzu just heard the Korean guy who was still a little dull yesterday, actually dared to speak so toughly. Not to mention Kinzu, even Dale who was facing them was a little stunned at this moment. Is this still the guy from yesterday? Who gave him such courage? That's right, beautiful lady, this is not your place, why do you ask us to leave? A young man wearing a big black frog eyeglasses in the driver's seat also took off the annoying frog eyeglasses at this time, looked at Dale with a teasing face, and even made a flying kiss. Who are you? Dale, who was about to take action, suddenly stopped what she was doing when she saw Kinzu coming behind her. Her voice became a little cold. Me? Pointing at himself, the young man in the frog eyeglasses laughed arrogantly and said proudly, listen carefully, I'm the head of the fraternity here, Charlie Chris. Brotherhood. Dale frowned. Although this organization is not a formal organization, it is not easy to bully. Bang. Fuck. Are you crazy? Just when she was hesitant, she saw Kinzu took out a brick from nowhere and smashed it directly at the hood of the light blue BMW. This time, not only Dale was a little dumbfounded, but even the guy who shouted that he was the head of the fraternity screamed in fear. Damn it, you damned fellow, I'm going to kill you. After a moment, Charlie Chris came to his senses and jumped down from the car like a madman, stroking the dented body of the car while roaring crazily. Really? Then you can try. Kinzu threw the brick aside, clasped his hands in front of his chest, and showed a relieved smile on his face. Why? My responsible comrade, are you so distressed all of a sudden? Do you want me to make you feel distressed again? No, don't. Trembling all over, as if he heard something terrible, Charlie Chris waved his hands quickly, fearing that if he said a word too late, the brick would come up again. However, before he finished speaking, he saw a flash of red light in front of him, accompanied by a sound that made his heart tighten. Clang. Ah, you crazy people, I'm going to fight you. Charlie Chris, who had a groove on his hood, rushed towards Kinzu with his fist waved in despair, as if he had suffered a huge blow. Bang. Before Kinzu could make a move, a long leg suddenly stretched out from his side and hit Charlie Chris's chest, causing his fat body to fly backwards. Not only that, but by coincidence, his body of nearly 100 to 200 pounds hit the windshield of the light blue supercar. Bang. Crash. Sorry, the road was jammed all day yesterday, please forgive me. Chapter 972 Silly woman. It's over, everything is over. To Kinzu's surprise, after being hit hard on the car body, Charlie Chris not only didn't care about the pain, but got up quickly and stared at the broken car body in a daze. Dale, you didn't hit the guy silly, did you? Kinzu took his eyes away from Dale's long legs and looked at Charlie Crease, who was standing there in a daze, and couldn't help but feel a little curious. Could it be that this guy couldn't stand such a slight fall? It shouldn't be that serious, right? Dale looked at her long legs with some uncertainty, and seemed to be wondering when she became so aggressive. "Ah, you bastards, I'll fight you." As if suddenly awakened, Charlie Crease, who was in a daze, suddenly took out a small pistol from his body and pulled the trigger at Kinzu. "Ah, be careful!" Bang! 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 Several crisp gunshots and exclamations sounded at the same time in this quiet campus, startling several guys wandering around nearby, and they immediately crawled on the ground and dared not move. "Clean, husband, are you okay?" Zumengyo, who seemed to be awakened from a dream, couldn't help but feel a little weak in her hands and feet, and rushed towards Kinzu with a sob. "No, I'm fine, isn't it fine?" Covering his pounding little heart, Kinzu's face turned pale. Just at that moment, he really felt that he was about to die. Fortunately, his bodyguards were responsible enough. "Boss, I'm sorry, I was careless." Dale took a few steps forward to subdue the struggling Charlie Crease, and came to Kinzu with a very ashamed face to admit his mistake. If Erica hadn't been paying attention to the situation here and hadn't taken out her gun and shot Charlie Crease down in time, Kinzu would have been doomed today. It's okay. Smiling and waving his hands, Kinzu comforted Zumengyo in his arms and said to Dale helplessly, "Who would have thought that the United States is so unsafe that there are people carrying weapons on campus? Yeah, this guy is too arrogant." Choking and raising her head from Kinzu's arms, Zumengyo looked at Charlie Crease hatefully. "I'm going to call the embassy people over. I'm going to protest to their government. They are so insecure." Kinzu's expression became a little unnatural when he heard this. He smiled awkwardly and said, "Well, wife, there's no need to alarm the country about this, right?" "Why not?" Looking at Kinzu, Zumengyo said meaningfully, "If we don't put some pressure on them, they will think we are easy to bully." This, touching his nose with a wry smile, Kinzu didn't care about Charlie Crease, who was shot 3 times and was still on the ground with a distorted face. He put his arm around Zumengyo's slender waist and explained, "Wife, you don't want your family to look down on your husband, do you? If you use your family's connections for everything, then wouldn't I become a gigolo? You're not black to begin with." Zumengyo, who was in a bad mood, pouted her lips and retorted without giving him face. Kinzu almost cried after opening his mouth. Is it wrong for me to be white? But looking at Charlie Crease on the ground and listening to the sirens gradually ringing in his ears, Kinzu continued to lower his head helplessly. "How about this, wife? I promise that I will never put myself in danger in the future. How about it?" "Who believes it?" Scratching his hair a little frantically, Kinzu wanted to say, "I believe it." But thinking back to the various experiences after coming to the United States, he still decisively shut his mouth. In the end, Kinzu, who really had no other choice, simply handed the initiative to Zumengyo. "Wife, then tell me, how can we avoid alerting the country? Are you sure you want me to say it?" Glancing at Kinzu with a sidelong glance, Zumengyo pretended to clear her throat, as if she was about to start a long speech. This is only limited to what I can do." Kinzu, who felt a little timid in his heart, couldn't help but remind her. "Don't worry, I know the limit." Rolling her eyes, Zumengyo ignored Kinzu's expression and started talking while counting on her fingers. "First, just like you said, don't put yourself in danger again." "No problem, absolutely no problem." Kinzu nodded hurriedly, looking at Zumengyo eagerly, hoping that the following request would not be too embarrassing. Because he really didn't want to alarm the country, especially the elders in Zumengyo's family. It's nothing else, just male chauvinism. He didn't want to be bullied outside, but had to rely on his wife's family to solve it. Although this is just a matter of a phone call for them, it also involves a favor, isn't it? Since this is no problem, then I'll talk about the second one. Touching her chin, Zumengyo stood up from Kinzu's arms, looked at the bodyguards around her, and shook her head. "You have too few bodyguards. You need to protect your family and you need to recruit more." Not enough bodyguards? Kinzu opened his mouth in astonishment and almost jumped up. "Please, now including Dale, there are already 13 bodyguards, okay? Not enough?" "Yes, not enough." Zumengyo nodded affirmatively, and the look in her eyes when she glanced at Kinzu revealed a hint of danger. "These classes are all female bodyguards. They may be someone's darlings. I dare not order them to do anything. What are you talking about? Kinzu, who felt a little guilty, pretended to laugh and quickly agreed to the matter. Okay, I'll listen to you. Is there anything else? Of course. Smoothing a strand of messy hair in front of her eyes, Zhu Mengyo pondered for a moment, and said in a very firm tone. The last one, we have to move, we must move. Why? Frowning, Kinzu did not rush to agree this time, but looked at Zhu Mengyo with some doubts. I don't know what you were doing in Boston, and I don't want to know. Shrugging, Zhu Mengyo pursed her lips and said with a complicated look. But no matter what you were doing over there, you can stop now. It has attracted too many people's attention. If we stay any longer, we will all be in trouble. This, looking at Zhu Mengyo's complicated eyes, Kinzu suddenly felt uncomfortable. She knew everything, but she didn't say anything. If she hadn't seen that he was planning to leave Boston this time, she would probably have remained silent, right? What a silly and cute woman. Chapter 973 The Noisy Police Station. Woo-ah, are you sure you want to treat us as criminals? Seeing that several guys still wanted to handcuff him after he said so, Kinzu's face could not help but sank. This, the young white policeman who was responsible for escorting Kinzu and the others, seeing that Kinzu was quite imposing, he could not help but look at his immediate superior for help. Forget it, take them back first. The leading fat policeman wanted to handcuff them all, but seeing Kinzu's eyes, he didn't know why he was scared. Fuck, this guy must be wrong. Shaking his head and muttering, the fat policeman twisted his body and got into the police car next to him with some effort. Hurry up, come back to the police station with us for investigation. As if he felt that as a policeman, he was actually intimidated by Kinzu, the white policeman's face flushed a little, and even the tone of his speech became a little impolite. Glancing at this guy, Kinzu didn't say anything, but put his arm around Zhu Mengyo's slender waist and walked towards the police car. It's true that he has taken this kind of car quite a lot since he came to the United States. After looking at the police car with a strange mind, twisting his body and feeling the difference from the police cars in Boston, Kinzu finally remembered the business. He took out his mobile phone and called Jefferson directly under the strange eyes of the policeman next to him. The policeman, who had been thinking about snatching the phone when Kinzu took it out, immediately became dispirited after listening to what he said. Because the first sentence Kinzu said was, Jefferson, quickly contact the top 10 law firms in the United States for me. I want the best lawyer. Jefferson, who received Kinzu's call, was originally drafting the details of the new store with Chain Mu. After hearing Kinzu's request, he was also a little confused. However, the biggest difference between him and the policeman is that he did not ask why after listening, but went to contact directly. What about the policeman? After hearing what Kinzu said, the policeman's first reaction was that this guy was bragging. Do you think it is so easy to hire a lawyer in the United States? But after looking at his dress and the many bodyguards following him, he had to admit that what this guy said might be true. Thinking of the guys in these American law firms who dared to do anything for money, the policeman was almost paralyzed by fear and quickly picked up the walkie-talkie to report to the person in front. However, the fat policeman who received the report from the policeman was at the peak of his life at the moment. He didn't take it to heart, but waved his hand. Since he wants to hire a lawyer, then let him hire one. We must pay attention to human rights. No, boss, he is. Hello, listening to the voice coming from the walkie-talkie in his hand, the policeman covered his head helplessly. It seems that something big is going to happen this time. It must be said that as one of the top 10 law firms in the United States, it has its own unique way and direction of dealing with problems. For example, now it has only been more than 10 minutes since Kinzu gave Jefferson instructions. But when Kinzu got off the police car, there were already many lawyers and bodyguards waiting there. Hello, Mr. Keene. I'm Jack Chen, a senior partner at Baker & McKenzie. Hello, Mr. Keene. I'm Mike Liu, a mid-level partner at Sidley Austin LLP. Hello, Mr. Keene. I'm Shailene Ruia, a senior partner at Allen & Overy LLP. Hello, Mr. Keene. In front of many policemen, a large group of blonde white men in suits and holding a pile of folders in their hands, regardless of their ugly faces, quickly squeezed to Kinzu's side. Fuck, who are you all? Are you gathering to cause trouble? The fat policeman, who had just got off the car with some effort, looked at the police station gate that was surrounded by people and couldn't help but get furious. He almost called the police to arrest people. Fortunately, the words of these lawyers made him take back the national curse that was on the tip of his mouth in time. Lawyers? Are you all lawyers? The fat policeman opened his mouth and looked at the group of guys in front of him with red eyes, his eyes full of suspicion. Are these lawyers or bandits? Mr. Policeman, of course we are lawyers. After showing his lawyer's license to the fat policeman, Jack Chen, a senior partner of Baker and McKenzie, took the lead in attacking. Excuse me, Mr. Policeman, what crime did my client commit that you have to take him to the police station in a police car? Do you know how much damage this will cause to my client? Before the fat policeman had time to speak, a white man with brown hair and closed eyes squeezed in and asked loudly, Mr. Policeman, I'm Mike Liu, I'm a level partner of Sidley Austin LLP. I want to know why my client is acting in self-defense from the perspective of both the onlookers and the criminals. But he was still brought to the police station. This, Mr. Policeman, okay, I think we can go in and talk. Rubbing his dizzy head, the fat policeman bravely led the way, and the young policeman behind him saw this and hurriedly followed. Now it was the lawyer's turn to be dumbfounded. When had they ever heard of a symposium going well and the protagonist ran away? Okay, guys, you were great, let's go into. Qin Zhu, who was watching the show on the side, also came out and said with a smile, let's go in and see what they say. If they handle it fairly and impartially, I have no demands, but if they dare to protect certain people, don't be polite to me. Don't worry, Mr. Clean, we at Cheetah are the best at this kind of thing. That's right, it's so simple, si est escuchando esta novela en un canal distinto a mundo fanfic novelas, significat lo descarga and y subir en cines fuerzos invitamos cordialmente a visitar nuestro canal. Mundo fanfic novelas all encontras la versión original de esta historia y podrás explorar muchas otras novelas de diversos narradores. Te esperamos para sumergirte en un mundo de novelas incredibles. Chapter 974 Brotherhood. Bang. Fuck. Who can tell me what happened? Senior Inspector Hayden Sam slammed his hands on the desk in front of him, his collar unbuttoned twice, and stared at the fat policeman standing in front of him. Although the air conditioner in the room was turned on, the fat policeman who led Qin Zhu and his party back to the police station had his shirt wet by half. Hey, Mr. Inspector, listen to me first, bang. A loud noise interrupted the fat policeman's words again, and Hayden pointed outside with a gloomy face. I'm listening, but I don't know if those guys outside are listening. The fat policeman, who was already very nervous, was frightened by Hayden's words, and he shuddered immediately and almost fell to the ground. Because just now, those guys outside actually listed more than a dozen charges against him. What abuse of power, what defamation, a lot of mess. The most important thing is that he can't refute these charges at all. These small matters are nothing in normal times, but once they are brought to court, they will definitely be magnified for sentencing. In this way, not to mention his job, it is uncertain whether he can get out for the rest of his life. Mr. Inspector, you must save me. Thinking of the most terrifying scene, the fat policeman could no longer sit still, sat on the ground, and struggled to death. You don't know, they are too arrogant, they dare to shoot on campus. I also enforce the law impartially. Really? Hayden's face was gloomy, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Since it's all their fault, what are you afraid of? He opened his mouth, and the fat policeman, who had never experienced this, lowered his head somewhat dejectedly. He had given up resistance. Mr. Clean, please leave slowly. At the door of the Bozeman police station, a large group of well-dressed middle-aged white people looked eagerly at Qin Zhu and his group walking out of the police station. Please believe in our professional level. We will definitely give you an explanation in the shortest possible time. Of course, I believe it. Qin Zhu laughed and looked at this group of guys with a smile on his face. You represent the level of lawyers in the whole United States. If even you can't do it, then, although Qin Zhu didn't say anything else, everyone present understood what he meant and patted their chests to guarantee it. Qin Zhu smiled and didn't say anything. Instead, he took a few bodyguards and left the police station with Zhu Mengyu and the others. What he said was absolutely right. With such a group of elite lawyers, as long as the FBI didn't intervene or there was no case with dead evidence, there would be no case they couldn't overturn. Mengyu, when can your law firm open? Sitting in a special car sent by the hotel, Qin Zhu touched his nose helplessly, cast his eyes on Zhu Mengyu beside him, and said with a smile, if your law firm is open, we can save a lot of money today. You can still laugh. Giving Kinzu a cold look, Zhu Mengyu muttered helplessly. How can I open a law firm by myself? I don't even have anyone to help me. Well, for this, we can hire someone. Touching his nose, Kinzu wisely did not entangle with Zhu Mengyu on the previous topic, but asked with a smile. By the way, where are we going now? Should we send Eva and the others back to school first? Well, that depends on Eva. Looking at Eva in the back row, Zhu Mengyu asked with a smile. How is it? Were you not scared today? Of course not. Hearing Zhu Mengyu's words, Eva just shook her head gently. However, what she didn't say was that she was almost used to this situation. Then let's go back to school first. Yes, let's go back. After nodding, Eva looked at Kinzu hesitantly and asked. Clean, how did you deal with those guys? Will we run into them again in school? Probably not. Kinzu frowned, not sure, and simply took out his phone from his pocket. After a while, Kinzu put down the phone and his face became a little ugly. Charlie Chris can't get out for the time being, but that Korean guy is fine, he will probably be out soon. What should we do then? Zhu Mengyu was a little anxious when she heard it. That guy will definitely cause trouble for Eva and the others, and they are also members of the fraternity, so they should have a lot of connections. That's what I'm worried about. Touching his chin, Kinzu looked back at Eva and Little John, and said in an unquestionable tone. How about this? Let's find a place to live first, and wait until I figure out the situation of the fraternity. Is this okay? Pursing her lips, although Eva had no objection to this, she still subconsciously asked. Won't the school say anything? These are not important, I can take care of it. Waving his hand, Kinzu turned his gaze back, picked up the phone and continued to make a call. This time, he called David directly. Kinzu felt that this old guy must know about this kind of thing. Sure enough, he didn't disappoint him. Just a brief explanation of the matter made David burst into laughter. Clean, you're in trouble now. The guys in the fraternity are the most protective of their shortcomings. David, are you so happy that I am in trouble? Kinzu pouted his lips in frustration. He wanted to pull this guy who was obviously gloating over and beat him up. Oh, no, my friend, why would I do that? Regardless of whether Kinzu could see it or not, David smiled and shook his head, still saying in a smiling tone. It's just that what you said reminded me of a few old guys from our fraternity back then. I don't know if they are doing well now. As he spoke, David's voice gradually became low, as if he was immersed in some memories. Ahem, David, although I really don't want to interrupt your memories, I have to do it now. Kinzu interrupted David's memories with 2 dry coughs, and asked helplessly. Can you please tell me what this fraternity is? Is it a campus gang organization? Oh, God, how is it possible? David exclaimed, and muttered very dissatisfiedly. Clean, although we are friends, you can't belittle my organization like this. Okay, I'm sorry. Shrugging his shoulders, Kinzu was very helpless. Then, can I ask you to tell me what kind of existence your organization is? 9 chapters were inexplicably blocked today, and they are being revised urgently. Please forgive me for any inconvenience. Chapter 975. Who is it targeting? Fraternity, a very mysterious organization, but known by almost every American. Fraternity, like sorority, is a student club in American universities, and its name is composed of Greek letters. For example, Alpha Q Alpha or Kappa Kappa Kappa. In the minds of many Americans, fraternity can almost be equated with elite clubs. Because many American presidents and Supreme Court justices were members of fraternities during their college years. So, when Kinzu finished listening to David's introduction, he felt that things were a bit tricky. Clean, don't worry. Seeing that Kinzu suddenly stopped talking, David certainly understood what he was thinking, and couldn't help but smile and comfort him. Not every school's fraternity has such a strong background. TSK, you make it sound easy. Kinzu pouted, and turned his head back helplessly, and said with a wry smile. How do I know who are behind those guys? Oh, isn't this a simple matter? Squinting his eyes, David smiled. Simple. Kinzu was stunned, then he reacted and said happily. David, do you know? Ahem, how could I know? David coughed twice and sighed helplessly. He felt that Kinzu had been in the United States for so long, but he seemed to have not adapted to the capitalist life. Have you forgotten that there are information consulting companies in the United States? Kinzu hung up the phone with some shame. He had to admit that he was once again despised by the old guy David. According to him, he hasn't even learned how to spend money until now. He made so much money, but except for spending a little on women, he didn't seem to know how to spend it. Although he felt that this guy was wrong, Kinzu found that he couldn't refute it. Yes, if you want to know something, why go to him? Can't you just go to an information consulting company? It's a matter of spending a little money, and you don't have to owe anyone a favor. How good it is. How is it? Husband, did you ask it? Seeing that Kinzu did not speak for a long time after hanging up the phone, Zumengyo could not help but come to his senses and said with some concern, "If not, shall I ask a friend to come and check it out?" No need to be so troublesome." Kinzu smiled and waved his hand. He came back to his senses and called Jennifer directly. Yes, after David's instruction, Kinzu finally remembered that he still had a secretary. But she was the kind of secretary who was very capable. Sure enough, after the call was connected, Kinzu had just stated his request, and Jennifer sent a landline phone number. "Boss, this is a local information consulting company in Bozeman. The reputation is shown in the system and the charges are very reasonable." Okay, thank you, Jennifer." Kinzu, who hadn't called Jennifer for a long time, almost didn't want to hang up when he heard her soft voice. Fortunately, after accidentally catching a glimpse of Zumengyo's concerned eyes beside him, Kinzu hung up the phone decisively. Well, he didn't even say goodbye. "You're welcome, boss, these are all from me, beep, beep." Jennifer couldn't help but have a few black lines on her forehead when she heard a busy tone coming from the microphone in her ear. "It's like this again, damn guy, don't let you fall into my hands." Jennifer gritted her teeth and looked at the microphone in her hand. She hesitated for 3 seconds between throwing it or not, but still couldn't bear to throw it. After all, you have to pay for it if you break it. "Okay, wife, wait, it will be done soon." Kinzu, who successfully got the phone number, said something to Zumengyo without turning his head, and dialed it without stopping. "Hello, this is Birmingham Information Services Co. Limited, how can I help you?" Listening to the somewhat vicissitudes of life baritone coming from the other side, Yun was stunned for a few seconds, and then asked with a smile, "Birmingham Information Services Co. Limited. I just want to consult about the fraternities in Montana State University." "Fraternity? Do you have any more specific requirements?" The baritone on the other side of the phone was a little slow to hear the words. After all, in a university in the United States, there are many fraternity members. Although fraternities are not compulsory, not every college student will join. But joining a fraternity is a shortcut to expand your network, so generally speaking, the proportion of college students participating is still very high. This means that with Kinzu's light request, he would have to get the information of the entire state university. Well, of course I'd have it. After agreeing promptly, Kinzu opened his mouth to say something, but found that he had nothing to say. What was the name of that Korean guy? Where did he live? What was the name of the guy who was locked up in the police station? What class was he from? How about this, sir, there was a shooting this morning at the Bozeman campus of Montana State University. Just send me the information of the 2 guys across the street. The 2 guys across the street. After muttering to himself, the baritone quickly reacted and said with a smile, "Sir, give me a moment, I need to understand the situation first. I'll call you later, what do you think?" "No problem at all, I'll wait for your good news." Nodding with a smile, Kinzu hung up the phone and turned around with ease. Wait, someone has already gone to check it out. As long as they don't have any trouble later, they're completely finished. Well, what if it's very troublesome? Noticing Kinzu's somewhat smug look, Zumengyo on a side interjected at an inappropriate time. This, touching his chin, Kinzu hesitated for a moment, and said with a wry smile, "If it's too troublesome, let's go to another place. After all, safety comes first." TSK. Zumengyo curled her lips and ignored Kinzu. She turned to look at Eva, a smile on her face, and patted her chest to assure, "Eva, don't worry, no matter where those 2 guys come from, I will make sure they don't dare to bully you again." Eva was very touched by Zumengyo's kindness, but thinking of the whole story, she couldn't help feeling helpless. "Well, Zu, it seems that those 2 guys are coming for you, right? Is that true?" The smile on her face froze instantly. Zumengyo turned her head to look at Kinzu, then at Eva, and then she reacted. It seemed that the cause of this incident was really herself. "Findiest capture much as great as Pelaga has to el final. No esse olvaden didal like busgasms contendu exclusive yxo in mediato. Siascravata news teropatrian. Recurda, carda like, siascripsino donakin nos anima continue. Greaters a todas nos vemos on alpxmovdo.